Chapter 501. Lin Ruoshi's skin was exquisite and smooth, just like the finest silk. Yangcheng enjoyed it very much. This sudden touch made Lin Ruoshi blush instantly. Yangcheng's action was as if he was teasing her like a little girl. "What were you doing?" Lin Ruoshi said angrily. Fortunately, no one else saw it. She was the CEO of a multinational company, but her face was touched by a man like a little girl. Yangcheng laughed and said incongruously, "Oh, my dear Ruoshi, look ahead. We've arrived at the city. There's light. Do you want me to buy you something to eat first? A fast McDonald's? Wendy's? Or Burger King? Anyway, we're overseas. Eating some Western fast food can be considered as experiencing the life of a foreign civilian. Or go back to Paris for a better Western meal. It's up to you, huh?" Lin Ruoshi clenched her teeth. This guy was changing the topic again. However, she suddenly thought of something and asked, "By the way, how do you know where Romilly-sur-Mer is? Have you been here before?" Yangcheng secretly thought that it was a close shave. Finally, he didn't insist on his touch and explained, although the driver who brought us here deliberately drove in the northeast direction at the beginning, it was mainly to confuse us, just in case. When night fell, he changed his direction to the southeast and purposely chose a forest path without any towns. It can be said that this is a very meticulous kidnapping. Even if they knew that we couldn't inform the outside world, they still did a lot of work to keep it secret. If it's conventional thinking, according to the driving route and time, we should have arrived at the area around Espely, northeast of Paris. However, this kind of trick can only fool ordinary people. It's still very difficult to fool me. So, I calculated the distance and should be arriving at Romilly-sur-Mer. Also, I felt the heavy water vapor in the warehouse just now. There's also the faint sound of a river, so I guess that we should be passing through Romilly-sur-Seine. As for why I know these places, it's not because I've been here before. It's just that I memorized the world map. Memorized the world map? Even though Lin Ruoshi had seen many brilliant people in the business world, she couldn't quite understand how Yangcheng did it. She looked at Yangcheng for a while with a complicated expression. It was hard to imagine that this guy was her husband in name, and he was picked up from the market. Lin Ruoshi turned her head and looked at the bright night view of the city ahead. The car was about to enter the city. She muttered to herself, "Why is it that the more you explain, the more questions I don't understand?" Yangcheng pursed his lips and took another puff. He threw the cigarette but out of the window and said, "It's actually very simple. Don't treat me as a human. Just treat me as a monster. Wouldn't that explain everything? Don't talk nonsense." Lin Ruoshi suddenly raised her voice and reprimanded her. Yangcheng was stunned. He didn't understand why Lin Ruoshi had such a big reaction. "You?" Lin Ruoshi also knew that she was overreacting, but she still said clearly, "You're not a monster. No matter what other people think of you, I don't think of you that way. You can't think of yourself that way either." Looking at the woman's beautiful eyes that were shining with seriousness, Yangcheng grinned. "Fool, you're the fool," Lin Ruoshi said seriously. Yes, you're a fool. And I'm also a fool. We're a fool couple." Yangcheng laughed and sped up the car toward Romilly-sur-Seine. In the 13th arrondissement of Paris, in an ordinary residential area, there were houses scattered among the sparse lights. Most of the houses here had decades of history. Most of them were exquisite and unique, showing the long history of the country. In one of the two-story buildings with gray walls and a red roof, a family of 3 was sitting around an oval dining table, enjoying bacon, mashed potatoes, and toast, which were all very ordinary home-cooked food. Under the warm light, a boy of about 10 years old with curly yellow hair put down the spoon in his hand and looked up at the tall man sitting next to him. "Dad, can we go to Disneyland on Sunday? Many kids in our class are going there." "Harry, don't mess around. Dad is very busy these days," Harry's mother said in a low voice, pretending to be angry. The burly man, Harry's father, had a full beard. He raised his hand to stop his wife from scaring his son. He turned around and smiled gently. "Dad has been very busy recently. After this month, Dad will accompany Harry to Disneyland to watch a flying car show. Okay?" Harry pouted, "But there's never a time when I'm not busy." Hearing his son's aggrieved voice, a trace of pity flashed in the man's eyes. His wife, who was sitting next to him, also felt helpless and sad. At this moment, the man's phone on the table rang. The man looked at the caller ID, frowned, and picked up the call. "I'm Fodessa. What's the matter?" A hurried report came from the other side of the phone. "Deputy Director, we just received news from the police. The missing rich merchants and nobles were found in a warehouse by the Seine River in Romilly. According to the report, an anonymous witness provided us with a clue. We've asked the police to block the news and rescue the VIPs as soon as possible. However, many VIPs are angry and emotionally unstable." Fodessa was silent for a moment. "Have you found out the origin of the kidnappers?" "Yes. As expected, it was done by Apollo's subordinates, the realm of God. We saw the golden sun totem on the dead kidnappers. However, the background information of these people indicated that they belong to the Cerberus organization. Based on the analysis, it's very likely that the organization has already submitted to the realm of God." "Cerberus?" A sharp glint flashed across Fodessa's eyes. "Isn't that organization on the verge of disbanding?" "That's what we thought before. However, it's obvious that the elites of Cerberus that we attacked previously were fake. The real core strength of Cerberus hasn't been destroyed." Hearing this, Fodessa clenched his fist. "Got it. Calm down the VIPs first. We can't let this matter get out of hand. I'll head over to the scene now." "All right. Does Director Depnay know about this?" The staff on the other side of the phone hesitated for a moment before replying in a soft voice. Director Depnay said that you should do as you see fit. "You can meet him after you're done." Fodessa's face darkened. He took a deep breath and hung up the phone. Seeing that her husband didn't look well, the woman asked worriedly, "Dear, did something happen?" Fodessa then realized that he was at home. He forced a smile and said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it. You guys continue eating. I have to go out." Having said that, Fodessa stood up and put on his coat. He was about to leave, but stopped after a few steps. Fodessa turned around and looked at his son, Harry, who was looking at him eagerly. With a loving smile, he said, "Harry, I promise you that after this month, I'll take you to Disneyland. When you're done with your summer vacation, I'll take you to the Mediterranean for a vacation. We'll go on a cruise, okay?" "Really?" The boy, who was on the verge of tears, was overjoyed. Fodessa nodded heavily, smiled at his wife, and turned to leave. At the same time, on the N4 motorway from Romilly to Paris, Yang Chung and the rest in the Bentley were in a different situation. In the middle of the car, Goodman was holding a bag of McDonald's packages with a blank expression, lost in thought. Opposite him, the siblings, Stern and Alice, had also received a bag of McDonald's packages. However, the two of them were enjoying their chicken hamburgers. Just 10 minutes ago, Yang Chung drove into a McDonald's at the edge of the city and bought a few bags of McDonald's packages. Naturally, everyone in the car got a share. "Mr. Goodman, aren't you going to eat?" "Actually, the hamburgers are pretty good too," Alice said with interest. After all, they grew up in a big family and rarely came in contact with such cheap fast food. Therefore, the siblings were enjoying the food. Goodman said bitterly, "I really don't know what he's thinking. How could he buy such a thing? How could Rawashi eat such cheap food? And how could she use this to serve the two of you?" Stern didn't care about Goodman's words at all. After finishing the burger in his hand, he clicked his tongue and wanted more. Seeing that Goodman wasn't eating, he snatched the bag from his hand. "Mr. Goodman, if you don't want to eat, give me your share too." Stern took out another hamburger from the bag and said with a smile, "Yeah, give me the French fries too." "McDonald's French fries are pretty good," Alice said happily. Goodman widened his eyes and looked at the pair of unscrupulous siblings. He was on the verge of tears. Although he felt that the food was too low-end, he wasn't hungry. At this moment, Lin Ruashi, who was abused in Goodman's eyes, was sitting on the passenger seat. She was holding the double beef patty cheeseburger that Yang Chung had bought for her. She was hesitating and couldn't bring herself to eat it. Lin Ruashi couldn't remember if she had ever eaten a burger before. In the eyes of most people in Huaxia, this kind of food was considered foreign. Many people like to sit in McDonald's or KFC and enjoy their meals. However, overseas, The biggest function of this kind of fast food was to buy and eat it quickly. Most people would only buy it when they drove by and wouldn't even get out of the car. After buying it, they would finish it in the car. There was nothing special about it. In terms of price, compared to Lin Ruashi's status, this kind of food was too cheap. Why aren't you eating? Your stomach was growling just now. Aren't you hungry? Yang Cheng was driving with one hand and chewing on a burger with the other. He asked in confusion when he saw that Lin Ruashi didn't open her mouth. Lin Ruashi bit her lips. It would be weird if she wasn't hungry. She hadn't eaten anything since she got off the plane. How could she not be hungry? Did you do it on purpose? Lin Ruashi asked. What do you mean? Lin Ruashi pointed at the thick beef burger in her hand. This burger is so thick. How am I supposed to eat it? Of course, open your mouth wide. Just like me, Yang Cheng said and took another big bite. But, Lin Ruashi found it hard to open her mouth wide to eat a burger like this. Yang Cheng said sourly, Yo, your stomach is growling, but you still have to look like a lady. Are you looking down on people who eat hamburgers? That's right. Only a boorish person like me would eat this. So my darling Ruashi still has a bit of princess syndrome. You're the one with princess syndrome. Don't treat me like a child. There's no need to provoke me. Isn't it just eating a burger? Childish. Lin Ruashi felt very upset when she heard Yang Cheng's sarcasm. She glared at him hatefully, then turned her gaze back to the burger in her hand. In the end, Lin Ruashi simply closed her eyes, opened her mouth to the fullest, and took a bite. To be honest, the beef burger with cheese was very fragrant. Although it was easy to put on weight, it was hard to resist. Lin Ruashi's stomach was rumbling with hunger. After taking a bite, she couldn't help but take big bites. This was the first time Yang Cheng saw Lin Ruashi eat with her cheeks bulging. Her originally beautiful oval face now looked like a bun face. Look at you. Look at how you've eaten. Yang Cheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After finishing the food in his hand, he reached out and scraped the corner of Lin Ruashi's mouth with his finger. Because she ate too fast, a lot of the white sauce remained on the corner of her mouth. Lin Ruashi saw the sauce on Yang Cheng's finger that was scraped from the corner of her mouth. She wanted to jump out of the car. This was too embarrassing. However, the next scene made Lin Ruashi have the urge to kill herself. She saw that Yang Cheng was very natural. He sucked the finger with the sauce in his mouth clean. Lin Ruashi was so embarrassed that she almost choked on it. Yang Cheng also realized that this action was rather ambiguous, but he was thick-skinned, so he didn't think much of it. He looked at Lin Ruashi, whose ears had already turned red in the dark. Smiling evilly, he said, What's wrong with that? It's not like we've never kissed before. If Babe feels like you're at a disadvantage, I'll let you put some sauce on my lips, and you'll help me scrape and lick it. Lin Ruashi almost fainted. Is there a person who speaks so shamelessly? But she knew that she would be bullied if she said more. She could only continue to vent all her resentment on the burger in her hand and continue to eat. But this time, Lin Ruashi turned her back and didn't give Yang Cheng any chance to touch her face. Yang Cheng didn't make any more jokes. He also knew that Lin Ruashi was really hungry. Everything must have a limit, so he focused on the highway ahead. The Bentley drove quickly to downtown Paris. Chapter 502. More than an hour later, a dusty Bentley stopped at the entrance of the Sofitel Paris Hotel. This five-star hotel was located near the Madeleine Cathedral and Place de Concorde. Amidst the magnificent lights and retro architecture, it created an eye-catching and beautiful scenery. It was like a huge sculpture. Two Caucasian waiters were standing at the entrance with their heads held high. When they saw the Bentley driving in, they first put on a standard smile, but then their expressions turned blank. It was because the scratches on the car, as well as the dirt and dust on the car, were really puzzling. The waiters couldn't help but look at each other and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. This kind of luxury car wasn't rare outside the Sofitel Paris Hotel, but it was rare to see such an unkempt luxury car, as if it had just left the country road. However, before the two waiters could open the door for the owner of the car, a group of more than 10 men and women in formal attire suddenly rushed out of the hotel. They ran to the middle of the Bentley and opened the door in the middle compartment. Director Gu, you're finally back. The man leading the group looked touched. He bent his waist and almost wiped away his tears. Goodman, who had tidied up his white suit, had returned to his usual elegant demeanor. He nodded in a dignified manner. As he got off the car, he turned around and made a pleased gesture to the Stern siblings in the car. "Is that General Lin? God bless us. General Lin has returned safely?" The group of people chatted happily. Little did they know that a handsome man and a beautiful woman had gotten out of the car. "Hi." Stern greeted the group of people with a bright smile. He hugged his sister, Alice, and accepted the group's welcome without hesitation. "Director Gu, these two are—" Someone looked at Goodman in confusion. Goodman coughed twice and said, "These two are Mr. Stern and Miss Alice from the Cromwell family, the Lord Protector of England. I was kidnapped by bandits this time and was lucky enough to escape with them. They happened to be staying in this hotel during the Fashion Week, so we came back together." Cromwell family. Those present were all senior executives of the European branch of ULA International, and most of them were European natives. Naturally, they had heard of such an ancient and wealthy family, so they couldn't help but bow and greet them. They were even a little confused, as they wouldn't be able to meet such a person on a normal day. At this moment, everyone seemed to have forgotten that they were originally waiting to welcome the number one person in the company, the CEO Lin Ruashi. That was why they had specially gathered together and waited in the hotel. Unexpectedly, not only did the CEO not pick up the call, but he also lost contact with Goodman. 2 hours ago, he received a call from Goodman saying that he had been kidnapped and had just escaped. The group of people hurriedly gathered in the hotel again, which led to the scene of them leaving in a hurry. The doors of the Bentley's driver's seat and front passenger's seat opened at the same time. Yang Chung alighted from the car and took a deep breath of the fresh Paris night air before stretching his body. As for Lin Ruashi, she was a little sleepy in the car and had just tidied up her appearance. Now that she alighted from the car, she still looked a little sleepy and innocent. Her cheeks were a little flushed, and coupled with her beautiful and aloof appearance, coupled with her black silk dress, she looked like a dark elf from a Western fantasy story. The beautiful scene immediately made the group of people outside the hotel hold their breaths. Even the tourists who happened to pass by the hotel stopped to admire her for a moment. Seeing a group of people blocking the car and staring at her in a daze, Lin Ruashi immediately understood that they were her company's European subordinates. Seeing them in such a daze, she naturally felt a little uncomfortable and couldn't help but frown. Seeing Lin Ruashi alight, Goodman quickly squeezed through the crowd and shouted, spread out, spread out. Don't block General Lin. Do you hear me?" Hearing the reprimand, the group of executives suddenly came to a realization. Isn't this the CEO that we only see in photos and videos? Why is she even more beautiful in real life than in photos? "Hello, General Lin." The group of people immediately spread out and made way for Lin Ruashi. Lin Ruashi took a deep breath and opened her eyes again. Her original languid demeanor was nowhere to be seen. It was as if she had returned to the headquarters of ULA International. She glanced at the crowd, and the imposing aura that she had accumulated over the years made everyone's heart tremble. "I don't know how you usually work, but based on your performance just now, I can fire all of you without any hesitation." Lin Ruashi said calmly, "You are the managers. Don't make me think that you should be the ones being managed." The group of people broke out in cold sweat. Although Lin Ruashi's words didn't contain any anger, it was these emotionless words that made them feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. "Ruashi, don't be angry. I think these people are too excited. After all, it's rare for you to come to Europe. We don't get to see each other usually, and many of them are your admirers. Of course they are excited. Speaking of which, they are also worried about us. Let's forget about it this time." Goodman tried to smooth things over. Lin Ruashi didn't say much. She directly passed through the crowd and entered the hotel. Goodman heaved a sigh of relief and glared at his subordinates. Then, he smiled at the Stern siblings and said, "Your servants should be in the hotel now, right? I wonder where they are now. Do you need me to inform them?" "Servants?" Stern laughed. "Mr. Goodman, we don't have such a grand entrance. This time, it's only the two of us on this trip to Paris. We didn't bring anyone else." Goodman was stunned. He couldn't believe his ears. However, the Stern siblings didn't intend to explain much. They directly followed behind Lin Ruashi and entered the hotel. Just as Yang Chung, who was yawning and planning to return to the hotel to rest, was about to enter, he was stopped by a staff member of Yu Lei International. "You're the driver, right? Go and park the car." "Do you want us to park the car?" the staff member ordered. Yang Chung scratched his head helplessly. He didn't intend to explain anything. It wasn't a big deal to stop the car. However, before Yang Chung could turn around, the staff member's head was hit by Goodman. The staff member scolded, "Are you a pig?" "This is Director Yang who accompanied General Lin." "Didn't you see who was accompanying General Lin?" Quickly apologized to Director Yang. This reprimand stunned the group of Yu Lei's executives once again. In fact, no one noticed Yang Chung at all, compared to the handsome Stern siblings and Lin Ruashi's stunning appearance. Yang Chung was too suitable for the title of driver. Who would have thought that such a vulgar, average-looking, and lazy man would be a director on the same level as Goodman? "Sigh, sister-in-law, forget it. He doesn't know me." Yang Chung smiled and patted Goodman's shoulder. He then stuffed the car key into Goodman's hand. "Since you're so polite, I'll leave the car to you. I'll go in first." Goodman nodded with a flattering smile. "No problem, Director Yang. Just let me know if you need anything. Just treat this as your home." "Wow, your attitude has become much better. No wonder Ruashi made you the director here. You're indeed smart." Yang Chung, of course, knew the reason why Goodman was so flattering. After all, he had personally experienced a life-and-death situation. He clearly knew that Yang Chung had killed a group of black-clothed men. Goodman felt guilty. Whenever he thought about how the man in front of him had single-handedly killed a group of ferocious kidnappers, he couldn't bring himself to disobey. He could only bow and nod. The group of Yu Lei's executives were dumbfounded. They couldn't understand it all. Even if Yang Chung was a director on the same level as Goodman, why would Goodman humble himself and even be called sister-in-law? Could it be that even in the company, there was a difference in treatment between officials from the capital and local officials? Just as Yang Chung was about to walk into the hotel, the sound of police sirens could be heard not far from the hotel. Furthermore, 3 police cars were heading towards the direction of the hotel. Chapter 503. When the police car drove to the entrance of the hotel in a domineering manner, it came to an abrupt stop. Several tall police officers in police uniforms got out of the car quickly. One of them was a short and fat police officer with slightly white hair. He was wearing a trench coat and was walking at the front. After taking a glance at the Bentley at the entrance, he shifted his gaze to everyone standing at the entrance with a solemn expression. The moment he saw Yang Chung, this slightly older Caucasian police officer revealed a rather proud smile and walked directly to Yang Chung. "Are you Mr. Yang from Huaxia?" asked the Caucasian police officer. Frowning, Yang Chung glanced at Goodman, who was at the side. Since the police came to their doorstep so quickly, it was hard for him not to suspect that someone had leaked the news to them. Goodman wasn't stupid either. He quickly waved his hand and said with an innocent face, "Director Yang, I didn't call the police. I really don't know anything." Yang Chung then turned around and smiled. "It's me. Is there anything you need from me, Mr. Police?" "I'm Bolton from the anti-terrorism unit of the Paris police. We seriously suspect that Mr. Yang is closely related to a kidnapping and shooting case that happened 2 hours ago near Romilly-sur-Mer." Officer Bolton took a document from the police officer beside him and said, "This is the arrest warrant. Mr. Yang, please follow us back to the police station immediately to assist in the investigation." Yang Chung looked to his left and right. There were at least 10 or so police officers glaring at him. He couldn't help but smile. "Officer Bolton, can you let me handle some personal matters first? You're going to scare everyone by making such a big fuss. We can't help it. The scene of a gunfight is very cruel. We have to be cautious with Mr. Yang," Bolton said with a sneer. "If Mr. Yang wants to hire a defense lawyer, please follow us back to the police station. Don't worry, we won't treat foreign guests disrespectfully." After that, Bolton signaled with his eyes. 2 police officers went behind Yang Chung and grabbed Yang Cheng's hands before sending him to the car. "Stop! What are you doing?" Everyone turned around and saw Lin Ruashi, who had just entered the hotel, run out of the door and shouted to stop the two police officers. Lin Ruoshi was originally waiting for Yang Chung and Goodman in the living room. She didn't expect the police cars to arrive so suddenly. Worried that something might have happened to Yang Chung, she quickly ran out. She didn't expect to see Yang Chung being shoved into the car. "Ruoshi, don't be rash. This officer has an arrest warrant. We can't stop him from taking Director Yang away." Goodman immediately stood in front of Lin Ruoshi and said, "It seems like the officers have misunderstood Director Yang about the kidnappers. They want to take him away now. We can find a lawyer for Director Yang immediately. He'll be fine." The senior executives of Lay International also knew that this was the time to show their loyalty. Although they didn't know what was going on, they immediately shouted that they would help Lin Ruoshi solve this problem and wouldn't let anything happen to Yang Chung in Paris. Yang Chung turned around and winked at Lin Ruoshi, who was behind the crowd. He gave her an on-sheen look before entering the police car. Lin Ruoshi was stopped by a group of people. In the end, she could only watch as Yang Chung was taken away by the police officers. The three police cars left as quickly as they came. Watching the red taillights of the three police cars disappear into the street not far away, Lin Ruoshi stood in silence for a long time before saying coldly, "Goodman, find me the best lawyer in Paris immediately. I must see Yang Chung back before dawn tomorrow." Goodman's face was covered in sweat. He gestured for Lin Ruoshi to calm down and smiled apologetically. "Ruoshi, don't worry. I'll handle this matter personally. Director Yang saved my life, so I can't let anything happen to him. You must be tired. Go back to the hotel room and rest. I'll handle this matter well." Although Lin Ruoshi still felt that something wasn't right, she knew that she was unfamiliar with Paris and couldn't do things as easily as Goodman did. Thus, she could only listen to Goodman and return to the hotel to rest. However, her mind was filled with Yang Cheng's matter, so it was impossible for her to fall asleep. On the other hand, Yang Chung, who was being brought to the police station, didn't seem to be a suspect. Along the way, he chatted with the police officers in fluent French about the fashionable girls he saw on the street, which made Bolton's face turn gloomy. He wished he could seal Yang Cheng's mouth with tape. 10 minutes later, Yang Chung was brought into the office building of the Paris police station. Although it was late at night and most of the police officers had already gotten off work, it was still brightly lit. Yang Cheng's hands were handcuffed. Two strong police officers escorted him into an elevator in the center of the building with Bolton. On the control panel of the elevator, apart from the buttons for the floor, there was also a numeric keypad. After Bolton's chubby fingers quickly pressed a long string of numbers on the keypad, the interior of the elevator turned red. Then, the elevator began to descend. On the control panel of the elevator, there wasn't any indication of the underground floor. TSK. "Officer Bolton, I didn't know that your station had an underground base," Yang Chung said as he looked around with great interest. Bolton was having a headache with this unsuspecting suspect. He curled his lips and said, "Mr. Yang, I admire your calmness, but you talk too much." Roughly 30 seconds later, the elevator stopped. After the doors slowly opened, a metallic corridor appeared in front of them. The entire space was illuminated by white LED lights installed in the gaps. At first glance, it looked like a scene from a sci-fi movie. On both sides of the corridor, there were some rooms separated by tempered glass. All kinds of high-precision instruments took up most of the space. On the wide LCD screens, there were all kinds of complicated data and some external surveillance videos. There were only 1 or 2 staff members in white robes operating in each room. It was impossible to hear what was going on inside from the other rooms. Yang Chung was escorted by 2 police officers as he followed Bolton through the long corridor. Finally, they arrived at an alloy door at the end. Bolton pressed his palm on the fingerprint detector next to the door. After the scan was completed, the alloy door immediately opened. Bolton turned around and gestured to the 2 police officers. They immediately let go of Yang Chung and turned to leave. "Mr. Yang, please come in." Bolton's expression was even colder than before. He exuded a fierce aura that was in stark contrast to his fat body. Yang Chung looked at him with a faint smile. "Mr. Bolton, You look much more pleasing to the eye now." As he spoke, he stepped into the room. This was a square interrogation room that was more than 100 square meters made of alloy. There were cameras scattered all around, and there were passages leading to other places in all four directions. At this moment, a tall man with yellow curly hair was sitting behind a table in the middle of the room. Beside him were two French soldiers who were armed with live ammunition and were dressed as anti-terrorist special forces. Bolton walked to the man and saluted him solemnly. Reporting, Deputy Director. "The suspect, Yang Chung, has been brought here." "Thanks for your hard work, Bolton." The man nodded at Bolton before looking at Yang Chung. "Mr. Yang, you can sit down. Let's have a good talk." Yang Chung didn't stand on ceremony. He walked to the man. Although he was handcuffed, it didn't stop him from pulling out a chair and sitting down. A glint flashed across the man's eyes. Obviously, Yang Cheng's indifferent attitude was enough to show that he wasn't an ordinary person. "I'm not sure if Mr. Yang has heard of it. We, the Directorate General of Foreign Security of France, are also known as the 7th Bureau. In a sense, we're similar to the National Security Bureau of Huaxia. I'm Fodessa, the Deputy Director of the 7th Bureau. Bolton, who brought Mr. Yang here, is my attendant. Based on his appearance, he's the leader of the anti-terrorism team of the Paris police station," Fodessa introduced. Yang Chung revealed an expression that said, "I see." It wasn't that he didn't know about the 7th Bureau. It was just that the French Security Bureau was too inexperienced compared to the world's most cutting-edge FBI, Britain's MI5, Russia's KGB, and Israel's Mossad. The 7th Bureau was established by the French hero of World War II, General Charles de Gaulle. Although it had a long history, the speed of its development was indeed not commensurate with France's international status. It was considered an ordinary national secret security organization, unlike the American FBI, which had a special ability organization like Blue Storm. Other major spy organizations also had special forces, but France was completely ordinary people. "Although I'm not familiar with it, I've heard of it before," Yang Chung answered honestly. "Very well." Fodessa could tell that Yang Chung was being honest. He took out a photo from his pocket and placed it in front of Yang Chung. "Mr. Yang, you shouldn't be unfamiliar with this, right?" Chapter 504. In a business suite of Hotel Sofitel. After settling Lin Ruoshi's accommodation, he ordered his subordinates to prepare for the upcoming fashion week. Goodman, who had just returned to his room, threw his white suit on the bed. Then he collapsed on a soft leather sofa, as if he had lost all his bones. Beside the sofa was an exquisite wooden short table. A lamp illuminated half of the room. The spotlessly white lampshade was spotless. Goodman rested for less than a minute before he opened his eyes again. Under the yellow light, he expressionlessly turned his head to look at the short table beside him. On the table, there was already a folder without any stickers. Goodman picked up the folder, opened it again, and took out a few photocopied documents. Taking one out, Goodman pinched it with both of his hands. His gaze turned gloomy as he looked at the content on it. This piece of paper was a copy of a marriage certificate, and the photo of the owner of this marriage certificate could also be clearly seen from the copy. The woman was indifferent without the slightest hint of a smile, while the man was grinning with a comical sense of nervousness. It was the photo of Lin Ruoshi and Yang Chung when they received their marriage certificate. "Lin Ruoshi, do you think I, Goodman, am a fool? Do you think I wouldn't know your relationship with that country bumpkin just because you didn't tell me? Umph. Ha ha. So what if you can kill someone? Are you looking down on me and humiliating me? Who do you think you are? Lawyer? Hee hee. Of course I will. But tomorrow morning, you definitely won't be able to see that stinky mutton skewer seller." Goodman's expression was a little twisted. The corner of his mouth twitched, and his hands were trembling as he held the paper. After he finished talking to himself, he picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Mr. Goodman, it's time to get off work," a man joked on the other end of the phone. "Lawyer Charmo, I have a friend who entered the police station 10 minutes ago. I need you to do something for him." Goodman squinted his eyes and said coldly, "I knew it wouldn't be anything good, but since my employer needs it, I can only make a trip to the police station." "What's the name of Mr. Goodman's friend? What crime has he committed?" "His name is Yang Chung. He's from Huaxia. His crime is murder, Goodman said. Lawyer Charmant was silent for a moment before he said with an embarrassed smile, "What an unfortunate fella. But rest assured, this is not a problem for the ace lawyer of Paris, Charmant." "I think you've misunderstood me," Goodman smirked. "I didn't ask you to bail him out." Charmo grunted from the other end, obviously not understanding what this meant. "What I want to ask of you is not to save him, but to convict him." Goodman's eyes were filled with coldness as he smiled. "I believe that it shouldn't be difficult for Lawyer Chalmers to convict Huaxia of murder in Paris, France. After all, he has indeed been arrested by the police." Charmant only replied after a long time, "Oh, Mr. Goodman, you're really a special client. But I like it. All right, I understand your request. Remember, don't leave any traces." "This has nothing to do with me," Goodman added. Charmant laughed on the other end of the phone. "Of course, I didn't receive any calls. I'm going to seek justice." At the same time, in the underground interrogation room of the Paris police station, Yang Chung was staring at the photo in front of him with a helpless smile. The photo that Fodessa placed in front of Yang Chung was the golden sun totem that Yang Chung had seen before. Moreover, it was taken from the dead man in black. Yang Chung touched his forehead. He had roughly figured out what was going on. Initially, he thought that if the police were investigating this kidnapping case, they wouldn't have found him in such a short time. However, if this case had been investigated by the 7th Bureau from the very beginning, he could have been tracked down even if he had used a satellite phone to call the police. After all, the technology involved was not on the same level. Yang Chung didn't plan to hide anything. He nodded and said, "As you know, I'm the one who called the police." Fodessa's gaze was a little gloomy. He asked, "Then, those dead kidnappers must have something to do with Mr. Yang, right?" "That's right. I killed them all," Yang Chung said honestly. The interrogation process was so smooth that Fodessa felt that the situation was not as simple as it seemed. Due to the lack of time, although they had found out something unusual about this Huaxia man's background, they couldn't get any concrete information. Fodessa knocked his fingers on the table. After a moment of silence, he said, "The dead kidnappers in the warehouse were originally members of a terrorist organization called Cerberus. Every one of them was a combatant who had been baptized by gunfire. Before each of them died, they didn't even manage to fire a single shot. Their vitals were pierced through the middle of their brows, temples, and other places, even when they were wearing helmets. Judging from the situation at the scene, it should have been done in a dim environment. Mr. Yang, if what you said is the truth, then I have to say, you're really a dangerous person." Yang Chung shrugged and said, "Maybe, but what I did should be considered as self-defense. It should be justifiable in the eyes of the law. I don't think you're going to lock me up in a cell or execute me on the spot like a criminal, right?" Fodessa snorted coldly. "Self-defense is a right given to ordinary citizens. For what I see now, Mr. Yang can't be an ordinary citizen. I can totally suspect that a dangerous person like you is also a member of a terrorist organization. In fact, you're even scarier than Cerberus." Yang Chung sighed. He wanted to go back to the hotel to sleep after the interrogation, but now it seemed that things were much more troublesome. "Then what do you want to do, Deputy Director?" Yang Chung smiled. "You set yourself. All these are just suspicions. Even if I'm detained, there's a time limit. When my lawyer comes, I can't be kept here without any evidence. I advise Deputy Director to let me go. I've saved many VIPs. This should be considered as a favor, right?" Just when Fodessa was about to say something, Bolton, who was standing silently at the side, received a phone call. The ringtone rang. Bolton cast an apologetic look at Fodessa before picking up the phone. He asked solemnly, "What's the matter? Didn't I tell you that I'm interrogating an important suspect?" "It's like this, Team Leader Bolton. Lawyer Charmo from Gordon Law Firm is calling. He has important information to provide to the police. It's about the suspect, Huaxia," reported the police officer on the other end of the line. After listening, Bolton hung up the phone and immediately relayed the situation to Fodessa. Fodessa sighed heavily and looked at Yang Chung with a complicated expression. "I didn't expect Mr. Yang's lawyer to come faster than expected. If that's the case, let's go out." Of course, Yang Chung didn't have any objections. He didn't expect the lawyer to come so soon either. However, the next moment, Yang Chung revealed a trace of doubt and turned to look at the alloyed door behind him. Screech, the alloyed door suddenly opened, and a few figures rushed into the interrogation room. Chapter 505. Director Fodessa cried out in shock, thinking that someone had intruded. However, he soon realized that it wasn't right. The intruder wouldn't have opened the door properly. Upon closer inspection, he realized that it was Director Depnay. Depnay seemed to have come in a panic. He didn't even put on his military uniform, only wearing a white shirt. His hair was a little messy from the wind, and his originally pale and unhealthy face now had a layer of sickly red from anger. As soon as Depnay entered the interrogation room, he hurriedly sized up the seated Yang Cheng. When he saw that Yang Cheng's hands were handcuffed, his small eyes widened. Fodessa felt that the atmosphere wasn't right. He hesitantly called out, "Director, why are you?" Before Fodessa could finish, Depney's not-so-tall body took a huge stride and appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. His left hand directly grabbed Fodessa's collar. Fatty Bolton, who was standing behind Fodessa, turned pale with fright. With his own eyes, he saw Fodessa's nearly 2-meter-tall body being lifted up by Depnay, who was only 7 meters tall. He didn't expect that Depnay, who looked middle-aged and pale, could have such power and strength. Fodessa was dumbfounded. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but faced with Depney's furious expression, he didn't know what to say. "Bastard! Who asked you to arrest people without my permission?" Depney's voice was like the grinding of gears, deep and rough. Fodessa's feet dangled in midair. He gulped and tried his best to reply calmly. "Director asked me to handle the kidnapping case myself. Our men found out that this Huaxia man named Yang Cheng was the witness who gave us the information. In the results of the interrogation, he admitted that he was the one who killed the kidnappers. We were about to proceed with the next step of the investigation, but Director, so it's still my fault." Depnay snorted coldly. With a swing of his left hand, he threw Fodessa to the corner of the wall. Fodessa was thrown to the foot of the wall by a huge force. His body was sore as if his bones were broken, but he immediately got up and bowed. "I didn't mean it that way." "I don't think you have the guts." Depnay sneered and ignored Fodessa. Instead, he turned to face Yang Cheng. Once he turned around, Depney's originally gloomy and ruthless expression was nowhere to be seen. In its place was a fawning smile and an apologetic gaze. He said to Yang Chun, "Mr. Yang, I'm Depnay, that idiot superior. I apologize for the stupidity of my subordinates. Please do not blame me." Yang Cheng looked at Depnay and Fodessa playfully and smiled. "It's nothing. Since you've captured the wrong person, just let me go." The director didn't have to blame Fodessa. He was just doing his job. "It's not worth it to cause a rift between you two because of me. Mr. Yang is such a reasonable person. Let me remove your handcuffs first before sending you out of the police station." Depney's face was full of smiles. "I'll do the handcuffs myself." As Yang Chung stood up, he pulled with both hands. The alloy handcuffs were torn into a pile of metal shards, as if they were made of waste paper, falling to the ground. Depney's jaw dropped. Fodessa, Bolton, and the rest were speechless for a moment. After all, these handcuffs were no ordinary toys. Not only was the metal tough, but it was also extremely malleable. It wasn't impossible to deform it, but to tear it into a pile of shreds, how much explosive force would that require? Both Bolton and Depney's accompanying agents were dumbfounded. They felt a chill down their spines. Fodessa, on the other hand, had his brows furrowed especially tightly. Mr. Yang, this way, please." Depnay was the first to react. He walked to Yang Chung and asked Yang Chung to go out. Yang Chung waved at Fodessa and Bolton before following Depnay out of the interrogation room. After Depnay left with Yang Chung and his entourage, Fodessa, who had been standing there motionlessly, stood up. The bodyguard, Bolton, walked forward with an aggrieved expression. The fatty sighed angrily and said, "Deputy Chief, this is too absurd. It was the chief himself who told us to handle it at the beginning. He was too lazy to care about it. But why did he scold us when we've already caught the culprit? And even hit you?" "Stop it." Fodessa walked to the table and looked at the picture of the golden sun totem. He said in a low voice, "The director must have his reasons for doing this." Bolton's face was bitter, but he could only nod. Fodessa picked up the picture and clenched his teeth. Various expressions appeared on his face. Finally, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. He squeezed the picture into a ball. On the other side, Yang Chung, who had followed Depney out of the police station, felt much more relaxed. Although he didn't know who had asked Depney to rescue him, at least he didn't have to spend the night in the police station. It was something to be thankful for. To be honest, if no one had bailed him out, although Yang Chung didn't think he would be hurt that much, he couldn't really destroy the police station. There was nothing scary about fighting. What was scary was the countless troubles that would follow. When they were near the parking lot outside the police station, Depney stopped and saw a black Rolls-Royce Phantom parked not far away. He said in an agitated tone, "Mr. Yang, I'm really sorry to have caused you so much trouble. Please send my regards to the distinguished lady. If you have any orders in the future, we will be happy to help." "Lady?" Yang Chun furrowed his brows and looked in the direction Depney was looking at. When he saw the Rolls-Royce quietly parked under the night sky, like a stream of light in the night, he came to a sudden realization. So it was her. Everything made sense now. After Depney and the others said their goodbyes, Yang Chung slowly walked to the Rolls-Royce that was waiting for him. When she walked up to the car, the door opened from the inside, revealing a handsome face that she hadn't seen in a while. His golden hair was neatly combed as usual, and he was wearing a black suit with a bright red rose pinned to his chest. Yang Chung was stunned. He didn't expect the person to be one of his good friends, Edward from the Rothschild family, who was also Jane's cousin. "Dear Yang, it's been a while since we parted ways in Hokkaido. I've missed you so much." Edward smiled brightly and shrank into the car, making room for Yang Chung. Only then did Yang Chung get into the car and close the door. Looking up, he saw the lady Depney had mentioned. "It's been a long time, Catherine." Yang Cheng's gaze couldn't help but become gentle at that moment, revealing some nostalgia. Smiling lightly, he said, "Oh, right. Should I call you Your Majesty?" Chapter 506. In the main hall of the Paris police station, a man's high-pitched voice made all the police officers' ears ring. "What? You're telling me that Yang Chung has been taken away? Captain Bolton, are you crazy? He's a murderer. You made a decision so easily without going through any legal procedures. That's illegal. Knowingly breaking the law, you're guilty." The Caucasian lawyer, Chalmer, was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He was holding a briefcase in his hand as he slammed the nearby desk and roared loudly. After receiving Goodman's request, he had quickly obtained a large amount of information about Yang Chung through various channels and rushed to the police station. He thought that Yang Chung would be taken into custody, but unexpectedly, the moment he arrived, he heard from the police that Yang Chung had been taken away 3 minutes ago. As the on-duty officer, Bolton accompanied Fodessa back to the office and bumped into Charmo. After all, Fodessa wasn't a member of the police force. Under such circumstances, he didn't interrupt and let Bolton handle matter. Due to their daily work, Charmo and Bolton were very familiar with each other's identities as the captain of the counterterrorism unit. Thus, they weren't polite at all when they spoke. Bolton frowned. He was already annoyed that Fodessa had been beaten up, so he wasn't in the mood to chat with Charmo. He snorted coldly. "Lawyer Charmo, if you're here to cause trouble, this is the police station. We've already released him, so this isn't something we can control. You can sue us in court, but I can only tell you that you'll be the one suffering in the end." "Are you trying to intimidate me?" "Bolton, you fatty, do you know who you're talking to? I'm Charmo, the ace lawyer of Paris. There's no case I can't win, and there's no villain I can't sue." Charmo wasn't afraid at all. He pointed at Bolton's flushed face and scolded, "I'll make sure that Huaxia, Yang Chung, stays in jail. A life for a life. I'll make sure he'll be executed by shooting." Just as Bolton was about to scold back, his eyes glazed over and he immediately swallowed all the words he wanted to say. Charmo realized that Bolton was staring blankly behind him and couldn't help but turn around in bewilderment. When he saw an unfamiliar middle-aged man standing behind him, Charmo asked unhappily, "Who are you? I know everyone in the police station. You're not from here." The one who appeared behind Charmo was Depnay, who had just sent Yangchen away. Depnay sized Charmo up with a strange smile. "You're Charmo from Gordon Law Firm, the one known as the ace lawyer of Paris?" "Yes, I am," Charmo said proudly. Depnay nodded. "Did you just say that you want Yang Cheng to be sent to prison and executed?" Charmo puffed out his chest and replied, "You didn't hear wrong." "What? Are you also a criminal accomplice?" Depnay laughed out loud. His ashen skin was flushed with a sickly red, and his turbid eyes revealed a cold glint. He lowered his voice and said, "Pig-like lawyer, I'm sorry to tell you that although I don't know if Yang Cheng will be sent to prison, I have to tell you, you have to go to prison now." "What? Are you trying to scare me?" Charmo was about to yell when he realized that a fist was already flying towards him. Bang! Charmo couldn't dodge Depney's punch at all and fell to the ground in a daze. Half of his face was red and swollen, and he saw stars in a daze. Depney took out a white handkerchief to wipe his bloody fist and said, "Throw him into the place where prisoners on death row are kept. Pick a day and send him to meet God." The police officers on the scene paled and could only look at Bolton. After all, he was the officer of the police station. Bolton's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He didn't expect that the ace lawyer with limitless potential would be sentenced to death just like that. He was very clear that since Depney said to let him die, he had to die. Therefore, he signaled his two subordinates to take Charmo away with his eyes. But he didn't dare to ask Depney why he was doing this. Fodessa, who had been watching everything from the back, walked up and nodded at Depney. "Chief, can we find a quiet place to discuss some things?" Depney glanced at his assistant from the corner of his eyes and finally nodded, leading the way out of the office. When the two of them reached the end of the corridor, Depney stopped and said with his back facing Fodessa, "You want to ask who took Yang Cheng away, right?" "Yes, I need a reason. I can't just watch such a dangerous person slip away from my hands." Fodessa tried his best to control his tone and clench his fists tightly. Although his back was facing Fodessa, Depney seemed to have seen Fodessa's expression clearly. He snorted in disdain and said, "It's useless even if you're not convinced. Not to mention you, even I, and even our president have to be courteous to that person. Unless we want to cause a dispute between countries, if that person wants to be bailed out by that lady. Even if he is a terrorist, we have to let him go." Fodessa raised his head, his eyes filled with confusion. "Chief, I don't know who it is. You should have read about the bloody massacre between the British and Welsh royals from 9 years ago from the Bureau's confidential documents, right?" Depney said slowly. Fodessa was a little stunned, not understanding why the gray history of the British royal family was suddenly brought up. He replied, "Yes, I remember it clearly. Back then, it was the British royal family that tried to eliminate the original Orthodox royal family of Wales to achieve their goal of unifying Wales. However, due to the interference of the Rothschild family and other unknown forces, Princess Catherine of the Welsh royal family and the young Princess Jane miraculously returned to the royal family after disappearing for a while. After that, several important members of the British royal family mysteriously died. Britain's MI5 spent a lot of effort to prevent the incident from causing too much of commotion and panic among the people. That's right. After that, the Crown Prince of the British royal family could only be the Prince of Wales without any real power. Although the Welsh royal family still exists as a hidden royal family and doesn't reveal its existence to the people, from a practical point of view, the British royal family is already at a disadvantage. The real king of Great Britain should be the Welsh royal family." Depney said. Fodessa nodded. "I remember that document very well. There are too many suspicious points about the incident 9 years ago. Be it the survival of Catherine and her daughter, the silence of the British royal family, or the silence of MI5, all of these are too abnormal. However, I have to admit that the current Welsh royal family has surpassed the British royal family, be it in terms of status behind the scenes or in terms of economic status. Moreover, the current Crown Prince of Wales, Princess Jane, is already the core of the British Royal Academy of Sciences, or even the leader of the world's technology. With such a successor, the Welsh royal family's position is deeply rooted. You're right. There are indeed too many suspicious points, But that's not what we should be concerned about, because even in my 5 has maintained their silence. Depnay turned around, his eyes gleaming as he said in a deep voice, "The person who contacted me and asked me to bring Yangqing out was none other than the one who was officially crowned as the Welsh Queen last year, the original Princess Catherine, and now, Her Majesty Queen Catherine." The moment he finished speaking, Fodessa's expression completely froze in shock. Achoo! The Rolls-Royce Phantom moved slowly on the road, as steady as if it was walking. Inside the carriage, after a sweet snort, the woman very irresponsibly raised her arm and wiped her tall nose on the exquisite silk of the violet court dress, which could be considered as wiping away the snot. This was a tall woman with long, chestnut-colored hair. Time did not leave many traces on her body. Her exquisite facial features were like those of the fairies in the fairy tales. Every part of her body exuded a breathtaking charm, especially her pair of blue-green eyes. Her long eyelashes trembled, and she was extremely captivating. If there was one place that could tell her true age, perhaps it was that voluptuous figure wrapped in the purple court dress. A mature and beautiful woman's voluptuousness was incomparable to that of an ordinary young girl. All sorts of exaggerated but not overly graceful curves were enough to make any man's blood boil. Beneath the dress, there were 2 sections of fair calves that could not help but be exposed. Her tight skin was like that of a newborn baby, making one want to pounce on her and take a bite. However, at this moment, such a peerless socialite was doing something that even a little girl would find embarrassing, using her sleeve to wipe her snot. "Catherine, you're a queen after all. After so many years, can't you change your childish habits? In terms of body, you're a mature version of Jane, but in terms of mind, you're really regressing." Yang Chung, who was sitting opposite the woman, opened his arms and put one hand on Edward's shoulder. Looking at the Queen of Wales, who was like a goddess in the eyes of others, he said helplessly. Catherine pouted her red lips, her expression no different from that of a 7 or 8-year-old girl. Her sweet voice was like that of a 17 or 18-year-old girl. "My dear Chin-Chun, I guess some bad guy is thinking of me again. That's why I sneezed." If it was possible, Yang Chung really wanted to stab himself with a knife. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, he said, "It's not about you sneezing. It's about why you didn't take a tissue and had to wipe it on your clothes. It's convenient. Tissue is so troublesome, and I have to throw it away after taking it." Catherine pouted in grievance and said, "Seriously, you guys are so annoying. It's not like you don't know that I'm lazy. Youth and Jane are the same. You always say this and that at home, making me lose face as a mother. No matter what, I'm still a queen." Edward, who was sipping red wine with his head lowered, had a dark expression on his face. He asked hesitantly, "I say, Aunt, who told you that you'll sneeze when someone misses you? Also, Chin-Chin, what's going on with Jane?" Catherine giggled sweetly and said, "Jane told me when she was telling me about Huaxia's culture. Huaxia people use overlapping words to address someone they're close to. Actually, I can also call you Huahua." Edward hurriedly shook his head and almost choked on his wine. "That's right. Chin-Chin, you might not know, but in order to understand the country you were born in, Jane read many books about Huaxia's culture. You also know that I'm illiterate and it's not easy for me to read, but I also want to know about your country, so I let her tell me stories every night. I can fall asleep listening to them. However, I haven't been able to listen to stories these days. It's all your fault. You call my precious Jane to Huaxia. Now, you've come to Paris, and my Jane hasn't come back yet. She's my only daughter," Catherine said angrily. Yang Cheng's expression froze. He didn't know what to say. He looked at Catherine, who had a tsundere expression, and felt as helpless as when they first met. On the side, Edward said gloomily, "Aunt, as the Queen of Wales and a direct descendant of the Rothschild family, you only know English and can't read. This is a disgrace. You're almost 40 years old, and you still want your daughter to tell you bedtime stories. Do you think that's proper?" Hearing this, Catherine finally fell silent. She lowered her head, frowned slightly, and didn't say anything. Edward felt that his words were too harsh. He sighed and comforted, "Aunt, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you should become more like an adult. That way, Jane won't have to worry too much about you. Catherine suddenly raised her head, blinked her beautiful watery eyes, and nodded. I know. I'll be careful in the future. Hua hua. Huffed. Edward couldn't hold back the mouthful of red wine he just drank and spat it out. Chapter 507. Inside the presidential suite of the Sofitel Hotel, the large space was fully furnished with elegant furniture, making the entire room look like a complete home. In a room that adhered to the traditional design of France and fused with the retro style of ancient Rome, all the furnishings were ingenious, demanding that the guests could smell the elegance and grace as soon as they entered the room. The fresh flowers that were changed daily were placed in an exquisite vase in the corner, and the air was also filled with the fragrance of famous French perfume, rich but not pungent. At this time, the bathroom door was open from the inside. Lynn Rouache, who had just taken a hot shower, was wearing a white silk pajamas provided by the hotel. She held a white towel in her hand to wipe her wet hair and slowly walked to the floor-to-ceiling window in the room. The loose pajamas covered a large area of her creamy skin and perfect figure, but in the haze, it highlighted a nimble and light temptation. The night scene in Paris was not as prosperous as in Shanghai. It was more of a quiet flow, as if you could feel yourself in a sea of flowers amidst thousands of lights. With a faint sigh, Lynn Rouache stopped wiping her hair and turned to look at a wooden wall clock in the room. It had been more than an hour since Yang Cheng was taken away, and there was no news at all. Although she had full confidence in Yang Cheng, it did not reduce her worry. Quietly standing alone in the room, Lynn Rouache was slightly lost in thought, and she suddenly felt a little ridiculous. Once upon a time, she did not treat this man as an equal human. Many times, she even hoped that he would die so that he would not annoy her in front of her and always remind her of the hellish night when she lost her chastity. But unknowingly, the two had been together for a year. Quarreling, fighting, Cold War, joking, all the bits and pieces of life seemed to have happened yesterday. She woke up in the morning and returned home at night. In her busy life, there was only one more man who seemed dispensable and did not do proper work. However, it seemed that the days were no longer as cold and cheerless as before. There was almost nothing good about this guy. He was lazy, vulgar, and even vulgar. Not to mention that he smoked and drank. He was also very fickle. Other men would hide their fickleness, even if they were fickle, but this guy was brazenly womanizing. His skin was as thick as a city wall, always making him angry, always making fun of him, always mocking him, always scaring him, always making him afraid. He seemed to be very obedient, but when it came to a critical moment, he simply minded his own business and didn't listen to anyone's advice. His male chauvinism had reached its peak. This kind of man, there shouldn't be anything worth liking, Lynn Rouache murmured. She didn't know who to ask. After all, it had been a long journey on the plane, and it had been an afternoon of travel. Furthermore, they had been kidnapped. At this moment, they were both physically and mentally exhausted. Lynn Rouache felt that her body was soft, so she walked to the comfortable big bed and sat down. She lowered her head, but no matter what, she didn't have the courage to lie down. If I fall asleep, will he be able to come back tomorrow morning? Lynn Rouache felt that her head was very swollen. She painfully closed her eyes, shook them, opened them, and muttered to herself, "He's clearly such a bad guy. Why did I become like this? Could it be because he confessed to me that night?" In her mind, she couldn't help but think of that night when she ran out of the restaurant and cried on the street. It's this rotten man. The me from another world with you. This kind of me. Can I like you? Thinking back to that moment, Yang Cheng's shouts seemed to be ringing in her ears. A trace of shyness appeared on Lynn Rouache's face, and she burst out laughing. Really, which man would say that he's rotten when he confesses? What an idiot. I've never said that I like you, idiot, but if I don't like him, why would I always think of him? As expected. Ring, ring, ring. The phone suddenly rang, interrupting Lynn Rouache's mumbling. Startled, Lynn Rouache sat up straight, wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, and picked up the hotel phone on the bedside table. "Rouache, I hope I'm not disturbing you?" It was Goodman on the other end of the phone. Lin Ruashi responded. Then, she thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Is there any news about Yangcheng? Did the lawyer bail him out?" Goodman said awkwardly, "I've called the best lawyer in Paris, but there's no news yet. But don't worry, I'll do my best. He'll be fine." Then what's the matter? When Lin Ruashi heard that it wasn't about Yangcheng, she felt disappointed, and her tone turned cold. "I see that you're tired and not in a good mood, so I want to bring you to this hotel for a Thai massage. They have the best masseuse there to relieve your fatigue. Also, what's the hamburger we ate tonight? I'll treat you." "It's fine," Lin Ruashi interrupted Goodman. "Thank you for your kindness, but it's late and I want to rest." Goodman went silent for a while, then said, "All right then, the Fashion Week's release will start tomorrow. I'll pick you up in the morning. Whether Mr. Yang can come out early or not, work mustn't be delayed. It's at the Louvre's Carousel Hall and the Tuileries Garden next to Place de la Concorde, right?" Lin Ruashi asked. "That's right, Ruashi. Your memory is really good." Goodman smiled. "You don't have to pick me up. I'll go there myself. Just arrange a driver for me. I'll be in charge of the Fashion Week's activities, and you'll be in charge of contacting the designers and brands. This will be more efficient. If you accompany me to the event, it'll be equivalent to leaving the company's daily work unattended." "There's no need for that," Lin Ruashi said faintly. "But it's settled then." Lin Ruashi hung up the phone. Goodman, who was in the room, was stunned when he heard the busy tone on the phone. Then, he slammed the phone down and took a few deep breaths with a gloomy expression. His eyes were filled with coldness. "How dare you look down on my existence? Lin Ruashi, you'll be mine sooner or later." Goodman squinted his eyes and muttered to himself. Mumbled to himself. Just as he was about to turn off the bedside lamp, he heard the doorbell ring. Goodman got up from the bed unwillingly in his pajamas and walked to the door. Through the peephole, he saw a smiling waiter. Opening the door, Goodman furrowed his brows and asked, "What's the matter? Don't you know that the guest needs to sleep?" The waiter smiled without saying a word. He took out a black card from his back and handed it to Goodman. Goodman found it familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where exactly. "What's this?" Goodman asked in confusion. The smile on the waiter's face vanished as a cold glint flashed across his eyes. All of a sudden, a pocket-sized pistol appeared in the waiter's other hand. In the next moment, the muzzle was pointed at Goodman's forehead. Goodman stared blankly at the muzzle and finally remembered what the golden sun was. It was the symbol of the kidnappers. "I have something to talk to you. Come in and take your time," the waiter said with a sneer as he signaled the room with his eyes. On the other side, after Lin Ruashi hung up the phone, she sat in a daze for a while before letting out a sigh. Just when she was about to turn off the lights and rest, she heard the doorbell ringing. Since they were staying in one of the few presidential suites in the hotel, no one would usually come to disturb them. After all, most of the guests had bodyguards standing outside the door. Lin Ruashi was puzzled. She didn't remember having any acquaintances in Paris. Goodman had been rejected, so he shouldn't have the guts to come over. After putting on her slippers, Lin Ruashi walked to the door and carefully peeked through the peephole. What she saw shocked her. Unexpectedly, he also saw an eye. Flustered, Lin Ruashi took a step back and clutched her chest. Only then did she realize that someone was pranking her by using an eye to block the peephole. Stomping her feet angrily, Lin Ruashi wanted to ignore the person outside and go back to sleep. However, she suddenly heard someone singing outside. "Little Ruashi, be good. Open the door. Open the door. Your husband is back." This voice was obviously Yang Cheng's. Lin Ruashi turned around and opened the door. Sure enough, it was Yang Cheng standing at the door with a smirk on his face. "What do you think? I've adapted this nursery rhyme. It sounds pretty good, right? I knew it. Choosing me as the director of the entertainment company," or before the smug Yang Cheng could finish his sentence, he couldn't continue because Lin Ruashi had already thrown herself into his arms. Her soft body was only covered by a thin silk nightgown. Her hair was mixed with shampoo and Lin Ruashi's gardenia fragrance. The fragrance filled all of Yang Cheng's senses, making him feel intoxicated. More than once, Yang Chun had fantasized that his wife would be like his lover's one day. Instead of facing him coldly, she would happily jump into his arms the moment she saw him, allowing him to love her as much as he wanted. However, when the moment truly arrived, Yang Chun realized that he couldn't even muster up the slightest bit of playful thoughts because the woman in his arms was crying. Chapter 508. Lin Ruoxi didn't know what was going on with her. The moment she saw Yang Chun, all the strength in her body gathered together. All her thoughts were telling her to hug this man tightly. Other than throwing herself at him and hugging him tightly, she couldn't think of anything else. What reserve, what worry, what courage. At this moment, everything seemed pale and powerless. Feeling the woman's hands using all her strength to hug his waist tightly, Yang Chun was stunned for a long time before he finally came back to his senses. The corner of his mouth revealed a faint trace of helplessness. The inexplicable complex emotions made Yang Chun feel a warmth and fullness that he hadn't felt for a long time. Slowly, Yang Cheng's hands held onto Lin Ruoxi's back. Even through the silk, he could feel the perfect tactile feeling of her jade-like skin. Taking a deep breath, Yang Chun pressed his chin on the top of Lin Ruoxi's head. His right hand gently patted her a few times as if he was comforting a child. He said softly, "Good girl, don't cry. Aren't I back now?" Lin Ruoxi also held back her tears at this time. She was just sobbing a little. Her eyes were hazy with tears, and all the strength in her body seemed to have been exhausted. Yang Chun saw that Lin Ruoxi didn't even have the strength to stand up straight. His heart was filled with pity. He naturally bent down and lifted Lin Ruoxi's legs with one hand and carried her horizontally. Lin Ruoxi subconsciously hooked her hands around Yang Cheng's neck. Only then did she panic. She turned her head and asked with a blushing face, "What are you doing?" "Carrying you to sleep," Yang Chun said as he walked into the room and closed the door with his heel. When Lin Ruoxi heard the word sleep, her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. She looked at Yang Cheng's expression, which was as if it should be, and became more and more nervous. She didn't know if it was because she was in a foreign country with no friends or acquaintances. Even if she had subordinates, they were all strangers. Her sense of security had fallen to the lowest point. After experiencing a kidnapping and a life-threatening explosion, Lin Ruoxi felt that her mental defenses were on the verge of collapse. During the time when Yang Chun wasn't around, she finally realized that there was such a big difference between this man's presence and absence. However, realizing this didn't mean that Lin Ruoxi felt that she could do anything with Yang Chun calmly. Although she understood the importance of existence, there were still countless knots in her heart that made Lin Ruoxi's heart feel uneasy. While Lin Ruoxi's imagination was running wild, Yang Chun had already placed her on the soft bed. Lin Ruoxi only then realized that she was only wearing a thin nightgown. This kind of silk clothing would appear indistinct under the light. Shrinking back, Lin Ruoxi hurriedly pulled the sheets on the bed and wrapped herself up. Only then did she have the courage to raise her head and look at the man standing by the bed. The pure white bed sheets, the pure white bedding, the rose-colored bed sheets, the beautiful woman wrapped inside, the soft and bright black hair. This kind of color impact was actually very tempting. The key was that the main character was his wife, but Yang Chun just stood by the bed without any extra movements. He just quietly watched Lin Ruoxi's series of small movements, as if he was watching an interesting light comedy. Why are you looking at me like that?" Lin Ruoxi gradually realized that she was thinking too much. This man's eyes were very clear, and there were no thoughts that made people shy. "I'm wondering if in your eyes, I'm just a guy who tries to trick you into bed all day. Although I really want to sleep with you, I've never forced myself. I've always respected your choice. Do you have to guard against me like a thief?" Yang Chun smiled. Lin Ruoxi pursed her lips. She didn't know how to answer this question. If she said, yes, it would be more hurtful. After all, he wasn't forcing her to do anything. If she said no, she would feel that it was against her conscience since Yang Chun had been flirting with beautiful women everywhere. You don't have to feel troubled. Although I'm not very smart, I'm not stupid either. I know that you hugged me at the door because you were worried about me. Who hasn't been impulsive before? Yang Chun blinked his eyes, and said. Lin Ruoshi lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Yang Chung directly. Indeed, her suppressed emotions had exploded in an instant, but she didn't have the thought of completely accepting Yang Chung. How did you get out? Did Goodman call a lawyer to help you? Lin Ruoshi stayed silent for a while before she raised her head and changed the topic. Yang Chung looked doubtful. Lawyer? What lawyer? Goodman called a lawyer for me? Lin Ruoshi frowned. No lawyer? Did the police let you go? Yang Chung spread his hands. I have an acquaintance in Europe. He helped me to put in a few words and let me out. Everything was a misunderstanding. I'm not a criminal. I see. Lin Ruoshi suddenly recalled that Yang Chung had asked her to get a loan from a Swiss bank. How could a person who could casually spend 100 billion euros not have other capabilities? It seemed that Yang Chung didn't care about going to the police station at all. Look at you. Silly. Don't think too much. It's not my first time going to the police station. I've been there many times in Zhonghai. Yang Chung laughed. Lin Ruoshi rolled her eyes at him in dissatisfaction. You're the silly one. But then again, when you mentioned the police station in Zhonghai, I thought of Yonyan. Choi Yun? Yang Cheng's mind quivered. He regretted mentioning it. Yeah. Lin Ruoshi said gloomily. I couldn't contact Yonyan after Sister Kai Ning came to our house last time. I don't know where she went. I'm quite worried. I don't have many friends. I don't know how she's doing now. Yang Chung touched his nose uncomfortably. He thought, how else can she be? She's training at the beach like a fool. Not long ago, your husband, had sex with her many times. I still have to accompany her to Yanjing to propose marriage in a few days. Of course, Yangqing absolutely didn't dare to tell the truth. He had just pretended to be an innocent man. He couldn't expose himself no matter what. Therefore, he pretended to be sincere and comforted. Don't worry. The Kai family isn't an ordinary family. They won't let anything happen to Choi Yun. Ruoshi, you better take care of yourself. Don't you have to attend a fashion week tomorrow? Rest early. Lin Ruoshi didn't notice anything wrong. She nodded and said, got it. I'm going to rest now. Go look for Goodman. He's downstairs in the business suite on the east side. He'll give you the key. So I'm not in the same room as you. Yang Chung teased. Noticing Yang Chen's mischievous expression, Lin Ruoshi couldn't be bothered with him. Indifferently, she said, can't you change? You're going off the rails again. Don't talk nonsense. Remember to attend a fashion show with me tomorrow morning. Don't be lazy. We're here to work. TSK. You're always talking about your profession. You're immediately urging me to work. All right. I got it. Yang Chung waved his hand and blew her a kiss before leaving the room. Just when he left the room and closed the door, Yang Chung saw a figure walking out of the elevator. Director Yang, God bless. You're finally back. I was so worried. Goodman looked anxious. He ran to Yang Chung in his pajamas while panting. Yang Chung laughed. Sister-in-law, you came at the right time. I was about to ask you for my key, but you brought it here yourself. Goodman was stunned for a moment. He slapped his forehead. I'm sorry. The key is still in my room. I called the police just now and found out that Director Yang came back safe and sound. So, I came up to see if Ruoshi was here. I didn't expect it to be true. Director Yang, you're not hurt, right? The lawyer I sent just missed you. Yang Chung looked at Goodman with a faint smile. Sister-in-law, you're quite helpful. It's my duty. Director Yang is my savior. Of course, I have to do my best to help. Goodman wiped the sweat off his forehead and chuckled. I'm relieved to see that Director Yang is fine. Yang Chung patted Goodman's shoulder and whispered into his ear, I'm glad to see that you're fine. Goodman was startled. He didn't seem to understand what Yang Chen meant, but he could only smile along with him. After taking the key from Goodman, Yang Chung slowly walked to the door of his business suite. His room was arranged the furthest away from Lin Ruoshi's room. It could be said that Goodman had put in a lot of effort. However, just when Yang Chung was about to open the door, he felt that something was amiss. As expected, before he could insert the room card, someone opened the door from the inside. Chapter 509. This was a girl wearing a thin gauze nightgown. She was like an exquisite sculpture covered by faint clouds in the haze. One couldn't help but think of the plump bodies of the ancient Athenian goddesses in Western oil paintings. Their soft lines and soft visual senses were all poisonous catalysts that challenged the limits of male hormones. Her beautiful chestnut-colored hair hung down to her waist like a satin with large waves. She had a tall nose, plump red lips, and a pair of enchanting blue-green eyes. She was like a fairy that had walked out of a fairy tale, noble, seductive, and full of mystery. At this moment, this seductress filled with the aura of a mature woman was lazily leaning against the door. Her expression was mischievous and full of the shyness of a young girl. "Dear Chun-Chun, am I beautiful?" Catherine blinked her coquettish eyes and looked expectantly at Yang Chung. "This." Raising his head, Yang Chung sucked in a breath of cold air. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I knew it. Other than you, no one would mess around like this." Catherine pouted, walked forward, and grabbed Yang Cheng's arm. Without any hesitation, she used the 2 lumps of fat in front of her chest to embed Yang Cheng's arm. "I haven't been intimate with you for almost 2 years. You're too heartless. Even if you came to Europe this time, if I didn't take the initiative to find you, you definitely wouldn't have taken the initiative to go to Wales to find me," Catherine said bitterly. She pulled Yang Chung into the room and closed the door. The light in the room was dim. Someone had carefully lit some scented candles at some point in time. The soothing Liszt piano music was like the clear cry of a nightingale. Everything made the night seem hazy and ambiguous. The beautiful woman next to him looked like she was waiting to be plucked. She didn't make Yang Chung impatient to finish the delicious food that was delivered to his door. Instead, he walked to the side of the large bed in the room and gestured for Catherine to sit down first. Kathleen refused to let go of Yang Cheng's hand. In the end, Yang Cheng had no choice but to let the woman stick to him. He said, "You should know that I've changed a lot since 2 years ago. Is it about the marriage? I know about it. I also know that your wife is here too. She's staying in this hotel." Catherine leaned her head on Yang Chen's shoulder and said with a smile, "But I also heard from Jane that you still have a lot of women, don't you? She even told you this. I really don't know what to do with you and your mother. Not only am I married, but a lot of things have happened to me in the past 2 years, especially in the past year. My view of women has changed a lot. I have to admit, in the days when I first met you, most women were just tools for me to vent my emotions and have fun. They didn't have much value. But now, whether it's you, Jane, Edward, Sauron, or Make Dawn, I treat you as my friend, not the toy that made me happy before." Yang Chung laughed at himself and said, "So, Catherine, don't be like this. You don't need to try so hard to please me. We've known each other for almost 9 years. Even if you don't please me like before, you're still my friend. You can still get my friendship." A strange light appeared in Catherine's bewitching eyes, and a playful smile appeared on her lips. "You've really changed a lot, Chun-Chin." Yang Chun noticed the change in Catherine's expression. Smiling, he said, "Now you look more like a woman in her 30s, instead of a silly little girl. You're so annoying. I can't do it when I'm young, but you're sarcastic when you're old. Am I really old?" Catherine let go of Yang Cheng's hands and stood up from the side. She spun around in front of Yang Cheng's eyes, then bent down and stared straight into Yang Cheng's eyes. She exhaled and said, "Chun-Chun, even if we're friends, you didn't say that we can't go to bed, right?" Yang Chung didn't say anything and shifted his gaze to Catherine's chest. Because of the looseness of her nightgown, Catherine stood in a bent position, which drooped over her bosom, and within the loose neckline a pair of round white breasts appeared a little crowded, and the bottomless ravine was like an abyss that tempted one to commit a crime. "Does it look good?" Catherine asked with a smile. Yang Chung nodded and said straightforwardly, "It's very beautiful." Hee. Catherine couldn't stop smiling. This posture caused the soft flesh on her chest to sway, as if it could fall at any time. An enchanting scent of frankincense was also emitted from her collar. "Chun-Chun, did you know that in all these years after my husband died, other than you, no other man has touched them?" As Catherine spoke, she suddenly straddled Yang Cheng's legs. Her breasts pressed against Yang Cheng's face, and she buried Yang Cheng's head in her chest. "I'm only willing to go to bed with you, only willing to please you, and act like a spoiled child in front of you. It's not because I need you to do many things for me. It's because this is what I like and what I'm willing to do. Yang Cheng's entire face was buried in the soft, elastic ball of meat. It was warm, and he couldn't breathe. After a while, Yang Cheng's hands moved to Catherine's waist and pinched the soft flesh there. Catherine's body was filled with excellent flesh. It seemed like there was some extra soft flesh, but it perfectly added to the charm of a woman of her age. Catherine softly humphed. She could feel the temperature of Yang Cheng's hands. It was a bit scorching. Yang Cheng pulled his face away from the pair of waves. His bloodshot eyes looked at the enchanting and noble queen in front of him. His voice was slightly hoarse as he said, "I could have controlled it, but you just had to play with fire. Now, it looks like you won't be able to sleep tonight." Catherine's eyes turned into a pool of spring water. Her alluring body was like a weak willow in the wind as she wrapped around Yang Cheng's body. Her burning red lips gently pressed on one of Yang Cheng's ears. She stuck out the tip of her tongue and licked it. Her breathing was a bit heavy as she said, "Do you still remember when we first met? I wanted you to treat me like the me at that time." Her soft and charming tone made Yang Cheng's brain feel like a flash flood had broken out. Countless thoughts gushed out. Italy, Salerno City. This ancient city lay quietly on the southern coastline of Italy. Apart from facing the holiday resort of the Mediterranean Sea, this city was just like other southern Italian cities, dim and old. Work, study, life day after day. Apart from a city's football team's competition, which aroused some of the people's enthusiasm, there seemed to be no future that people wanted at other times. Although it was winter, the warmth of the Mediterranean Sea meant that the residents here only needed to wear relatively thin clothes as they strolled through the streets. It was the weekend. The Italians, who were naturally undisciplined, drove their cars numbly. They looked at the rows of traffic lights at the crossroads that had faded due to the passage of time. Under the sunlight, it was occasionally difficult to see what color they were. Perhaps only the Gothic churches left behind from the Middle Ages, with their towering spires, flowery glass windows, and various designs of flying arches, could one feel the never-ending vitality of this city. Located near the port, the Church of Natchez Solo was just one of the countless churches in this city that was not well known. Almost no one remembered when this church was built. The granite tablet that recorded the history of the church had been buried in the bushes outside the church for many years, and no one remembered to dig it out. After all, compared to too many classic churches in Italy that were national treasures, this church was really not eye-catching. It was the most ordinary square design, with a tall spire in the middle. The exterior was black and gray, and there were some flowers that had been baptized by wind and frost. It was hard to tell what the original color was. At noon, the church's door was pushed open, and a group of peaceful local Italians walked out of the church. There were old people, women, young people, and children. It was Sunday, and the church's mass had ended. After the people who attended the mass left, the church's priest, Marino, stood at the door with a benevolent smile on his face. After watching everyone leave, he drew a cross on his chest and muttered something. Marino was an orphan. The old priest who adopted him had already passed away when he was 20 years old. Since then, Marino had inherited the management of this small church. In the blink of an eye, he was now almost 50 years old. Time flew by, and his most precious years were all dedicated to God, who had never appeared before. Turning around, Marino closed the church's door. He was the only one in the empty church hall. Sunlight penetrated the sparse gaps and shone into the church through the stained glass windows, making the mottled walls look especially bumpy. The air was filled with the smell of decay. Due to years of neglect, the dilapidation of the church had eroded the structure from the inside to the outside. Many times, Marino thought that the roof of the church would fall down while he was sleeping. Marino's face, which looked more than 50 years old, revealed a hint of pain. He raised his head to look at the Jesus cross in front of the church, and his eyes emitted a hint of mania and anxiety. After standing in silence for a long time, Marino walked back to the podium in front of the church hall. There was a long square table there, and on the table was a small basket of white bread and a half-empty bottle of wine. These were the leftovers left behind by the believers after the Massachusetts. However, Marino would never waste food because he was poor and didn't have a right to do so. Picking up the basket and the bottle of wine, Marino walked to the back of the church hall where he lived. Ever since he could remember, the old priest had accompanied him for more than 10 years. Later on, he had lived alone for more than 20 years until today. After taking 2 turns, Marino did not enter his room. Instead, he walked to the only guest room that had always been empty. He pushed the door open. In the room, beside a single bed with a white blanket, there was only a table and a wooden chair that did not seem sturdy. At this moment, on that wooden chair, there was a woman wearing clothes that clearly did not fit her. She was holding a girl who was about 10 years old, and she was quietly reading a tattered copy of the Old Testament that was placed on the table. It was easy to tell that they were mother and daughter at a glance. This was because the woman and the girl both had beautiful amber hair and skin that was as white as porcelain. Even from the side, one looked like a fairy while the other looked like an angel. Marino had always thought that this was God's masterpiece. Half a month ago, when a mother and daughter were stranded outside the church and were taken in by him, he had been thinking this way. Hearing the sound of the door opening, the girl was the first to turn her head. Although the little girl's face was as cute as a Barbie doll's, there was no smile on her face. Especially those beautiful sapphire blue eyes, which always revealed an illusion of wisdom, as if she could see through everything. "Good afternoon, Father," the little girl greeted in a crisp voice. At this moment, the woman turned around. Although she was not dressed up and her hair was a little messy, it did not hide her graceful and noble temperament. However, the woman's expression was a little innocent. She revealed a cheerful smile and said, "Good afternoon, Father Marino. I'm reading the Bible with my baby. There are many parts that I don't understand. Can you explain them to us?" The little girl glanced at her mother and said, "You should learn more words first. You're almost 30 and you can't even read the Bible. I'm obviously reading it for you." The woman stuck out her tongue playfully and reached out to pinch her daughter's chubby cheeks. "Baby, how can you say that about me in front of Father? You have to save me some face. Haven't I told you many times? Let go of your hand." The little girl frowned and moved her mother's hand away. She lowered her voice and said with dissatisfaction in a voice that only the woman could hear, "Since when are you acting like a mother? If I hadn't discovered that someone was tracking our hiding place, we would have been dead half a month ago." The woman pouted her lips. "All right, baby, you're the smartest. I won't pinch your face anymore." Seeing the mother and daughter whispering to each other, Marino's expression became more and more complicated. He stood at the door for a while before saying, "Miss Catherine, I brought some bread and wine over. You must be hungry, right?" The grievance on Catherine's face was swept away. She smiled sweetly and said, "Thank you, Father. I'm really hungry. Actually, I wanted to ask Father what he wanted to eat this morning, but I didn't dare to go out when I saw that Father was in Massachusetts. It's my fault. I should have prepared some food first," Marino said in English with an Italian accent. He smiled and walked in front of Catherine and her daughter before placing the bread and wine on the table. Catherine didn't stand on ceremony. She didn't think that the dry bread tasted bad. She picked up a piece and tore off a small piece before stuffing it into the girl's mouth. "Here. Baby, open your mouth. I'll eat it myself." The little girl looked like she was having a headache from her mother's action of feeding her. She took the bread and bit into it herself. Catherine clenched her teeth and snorted. "I'm so angry. Why are the children of other families so obedient, but our Jane is so naughty? Don't push the blame on me. No one else has a mother like you." The little girl rolled her eyes at her mother and said the key point. Marino, who saw that the mother and daughter were about to bicker again, coughed and interrupted their conversation. "Can I ask you something, Miss Catherine?" Marino asked with a serious expression. Catherine blinked and nodded slowly. "Of course, Father, please ask away. However, I'm not very smart. If it's an academic question, it's more useful to ask my daughter, Jane." She pointed at Jane, who was sitting on her lap proudly as she spoke, causing the little girl to look gloomy again. Marino squinted his eyes and put his hand into the big pocket of his black robe with a strange expression. He took out a piece of paper and placed it on the table. When Catherine and Jane saw the contents of the paper, they were speechless. Catherine had a dull expression on her face while Jane's expression turned solemn. It was rather strange for a 10-year-old girl to have such an expression on her face. Wanted criminals, Catherine, Jane. Bounty, 10 million pounds. Marino picked out the most important words on the wanted poster and read them out. He said with a cold expression, "This is the secret document I obtained from the regional bishop last night. You and your daughter have been secretly wanted in Europe. Anyone who takes you in may be implicated and killed, and the person who hands you over will receive a reward of 10 million pounds." The room instantly became quiet. Only Marino's slightly heavy breathing could be heard, indicating that he was not calm. "Father," Jane suddenly raised her head and said with a cold gaze, "Father, are you going to hand us over?" Facing the little girl, Marino's expression changed. He said, "If I can really get 10 million pounds by handing you over, I won't hesitate to do so. However, I've thought about it for the whole night. Since you're secretly wanted, handing you over will also be done secretly. How can a person like me, who has no one to rely on, guarantee that they will give me 10 million pounds? You're very smart, Father. If you really do that, you'll only die earlier than us," Jane sneered. "The best situation now is for you to pretend that you don't know anything. That way we'll all be safe. And when the day comes when my mother and I get the chance to go out again, you'll be our benefactor." After hearing Jane's words, Marino suddenly laughed hysterically. He laughed so hard that he staggered back and forth. He stomped his feet a few times as if he had gone mad. This sudden turn of events made Catherine subconsciously hug Jane tightly. Jane, on the other hand, had a puzzled look on her face. She wasn't scared at all. "What are you laughing at?" Jane asked. "Poor child. Although you're very smart, you're really just a child." Marino's face darkened. There was a suppressed fanaticism in his eyes. He said, "You're right. It's indeed a very risky move for me to hand you over. But do you really think that I won't dare? I've had enough. I've had enough. I've had enough of this shabby little church. I've had enough of the dry bread and poor quality wine here. I've had enough of the bunch of fat bishops who arrogantly take away my church's management fees. God, I've been serving the old priest since I was young. I've used my youth and my most precious time to accompany him. I'm almost 50 years old now, but I've never had a decent meal of steak. I've never traveled abroad. I've never even felt a woman's body. No one knows who I am. No one cares what my name is. No one cares if my church will collapse, or if I'll suddenly die of old age one day. What's the point of living like this for half of my life? Was it all for the last person to die alone in this rotten place? What bishop, what Vatican, what bastard God? Let them go to hell." The hysterical roar shook the entire empty room, causing Catherine and her daughter to be completely dumbfounded. "Get lost." Marino suddenly pulled Jane away from Catherine, and she fell to the ground. "Jane!" Catherine suddenly woke up. She shouted and wanted to carry Jane, but she didn't expect Marino's arms to firmly grab her waist. Jane was thrown to the ground. Her entire body was sore, and the cold wooden floor made her feel like her body was about to shatter. When she saw her mother being grabbed by Marino, she finally understood what Marino wanted to do. "Since there's nothing left for me to miss, why don't I treat myself better? Since God sent a beauty like you to my side, how could I bear to reject you?" Marino laughed uncontrollably. The muscles on his face began to contort. He swallowed his saliva and started to nudge his head toward Catherine's body. In a panic, Catherine used all her strength to push Marino away. However, she was only a woman after all. Even if Marino had passed the age where his physical strength was at its peak, she still couldn't resist him. "Let go of my mother. Are you crazy? You're a priest. How can you do this?" Jane was finally afraid. The strong girl shed tears for the first time. She threw herself in front of Marino, grabbed one of his legs, and bit down. "Ah!" Marino screamed in pain and kicked his leg. Bang! Jane's small body was flung away by this kick, and the back of her head hit the table. "Jane!" Kathleen screamed as she watched her daughter pass out. Marino couldn't be bothered with Jane's life or death. In his eyes, the beautiful woman in front of him was his path to heaven. "Catherine, don't reject me anymore. You'll be my first woman. I'll treat you well. I won't tell anyone that you and your mother are here. You just have to listen to me, and I'll definitely, no. Priest, don't do this. You, let go of me. Sob, why is this happening? Looking at Marino's ferocious expression, Catherine finally shed tears. She had never felt such helplessness and fear. She cried and screamed. She felt like she was stuck in a quagmire that she couldn't escape from. If she could, she even wanted to kill herself by biting her tongue. However, when she thought of her unconscious daughter behind her, Catherine painfully understood that she couldn't die so easily. She was a mother, and she couldn't leave her child behind. Priest, you'll be punished by God for stealing my prey. Suddenly, a rough male voice came from outside the door and entered the room. The man's voice seemed to have a magical power that could chill people down. Marino, who was about to bite Catherine's cheek, shivered and stopped all his actions. On the other hand, Catherine, who had almost given up resisting, stared blankly at the door with a pair of red and teary eyes. It was a young man in a black suit and white shirt. He was dressed like a gentleman and was fashionable. From his youthful face, one could tell that he was still a young man. The young man's appearance was very ordinary, and he had a delicate Asian complexion. Other than his exceptionally bright eyes, there was nothing special about him. However, it was this ordinary young man who gave off an inexplicable hazy feeling. It was as if everything they saw was not real. Who are you? Father Marino finally realized that something was wrong. He turned around in a panic and asked. The young man glanced at the unconscious girl on the ground, then at the beautiful Caucasian woman whose clothes were in disarray. He suddenly revealed a relaxed smile. TSK, what a beauty. No wonder even the Western monk couldn't help but want to eat. Such a frivolous and perverted expression on the young man's face created a strong contrast. Catherine momentarily forgot to sob and was speechless. Who are you? Father Marino was extremely anxious. The young man did not take him seriously at all, which made him angry and afraid. The young man walked into the house and revealed a bright smile. Zero organization, code name 13. I'm the assassin who came to kill the mother and daughter. 0. Assassin? 13? The series of unfamiliar terms made Catherine and Father Marino unable to react immediately. After a long time, Father Marino came to his senses. You're an assassin. It was difficult for him to believe that a well-dressed young man was an assassin. 13 shrugged. Is there a problem? Marino's face revealed a trace of mockery. Young man, don't think that priests can be fooled so easily. You must have eavesdropped on our conversation and wanted to save them so that you could tip them off to earn 10 million pounds, right? Assassin. If assassins were like you, I could be one too. 13 scratched the back of his head in distress. Why don't you believe me? Do you really need me to prove it to you? What can you prove? You're just a kid who's still wet behind the ears. Father Marino laughed maniacally. Stop bluffing. Let me tell you. So what if you found out that I was going to violate this woman? No one would care about a brat like you. Marino did not manage to finish his sentence because in the next second, his head was smashed into pieces. Kathleen stared dumbfoundedly at the blood splattering in the air. Just a second ago, the young man who called himself 13 had stretched out his left hand and slapped Marino's head with lightning speed. Then his head exploded. Catherine had never thought that killing someone could be so straightforward. There was no warning at all, and he used his hand to do something that even bullets couldn't do. She had never thought that the explosion of a human head would be so beautiful. Other than the thick smell of blood in the air, there was also the broken neck that was spewing blood like a fountain. Chapter 510. Marino's body finally collapsed. The headless corpse looked extremely strange, but it happened so quickly that Catherine didn't even have time to scream. The only way to prove that I'm an assassin is to kill. Are you satisfied now? 13 said in a low voice. His left hand was stained with blood, and the blood splattered in the air, causing both of them to be covered in red spots. There was a moment of dead silence. Catherine widened her eyes that were red from crying. She subconsciously wiped her face with her hand and looked at it. Then she murmured, It's blood. 13 didn't give Catherine much time to react to what just happened. Killing Marino was obviously as common as eating a meal. While shaking off the remaining flesh on his hand, 13 said, "Catherine, the princess of the Welsh royal family. Jane, the eldest princess of the Welsh royal family. Am I mistaken?" Catherine's body trembled. 13's indifference made her feel that her life was so cheap. Although the difficulty of this mission is a little low, I happen to be on vacation here. For the sake of the 10 million pounds, I'll kill you and your daughter. It'll be a relief for you. After all, you won't feel any pain if you die in my hands. If you fall into the hands of the English royal family, you'll probably be tortured. 13 seemed to be talking to himself. He looked at the unconscious Jane and said, "What a beautiful little girl. It's a pity that she won't have the chance to grow up. Otherwise, she'll definitely be a beauty that can captivate all living things." No. Suddenly, Kathleen raised her head. Her cowering gaze became sharp as she stared at 13 and said, "Mr. 13, my daughter has a chance to grow up." 13 was stunned for a moment. He then smiled evilly. "Tell me." Catherine took a deep breath and straightened her body. The fullness of her chest was especially straight, and her charming face, which was still stained with a lot of scarlet blood, gradually revealed a charming and seductive look. "Since you can kill me for 10 million pounds, then if I offer a higher price, can I also hire you?" 13 narrowed his eyes. "This is a wanted order. Theoretically speaking, I'm not hired by the English royal family. If the price you offer is higher than the bounty, then of course I could be hired by you. I want to hire you. I want to return to England. I want to kill those who want to kill us. I want to become the Queen of England." Catherine's voice went from low to high. The panic and fear from earlier had vanished in a thin air at this moment. The woman whose entire body was covered in blood stood there straight, as though she had really become a high and mighty queen at this moment, and not a downtrodden wanted criminal. 13 sized up Catherine with interest. "Although I don't know why you trust me so much and believe that I can do what you said, I have no idea why. But I'm very curious. What capital do you have to be able to hire me?" Hiss! With the sound of ripping cloth, the clothes in front of Catherine's chest were torn into pieces by her own fingernails. Under the coarse clothes, the beautiful velvet-like scenery made the entire dark room instantly become infinitely charming. "If you can really do what I said, then I believe that a person like you wouldn't just focus on money." Catherine stroked her amber hair seductively and said with a smile, "I have a noble bloodline and am the rightful heir to the royal family. I have the most beautiful face in England. At the very least, there isn't a woman who is more beautiful than me in England right now. If I die, I will only be a beautiful female corpse. But if I live..." Speaking up to this point, Catherine stuck out her pink tongue and licked the blood on her lips. Her eyes were seductive as she said, "If I'm still alive, my body and my future wealth will definitely be able to give you more than just 10 million pounds. The strong contrast between nobility and lowliness caused this woman's female hormones to be released to the peak. It was as if the entire room had been dyed with a layer of rose color. 13 walked forward and reached out his right hand to gently pinch Catherine's chin. He leaned forward and sniffed Catherine's proud pink neck. The rich body fragrance of a young woman was full of temptation for a young man who was young, but had already experienced many things between men and women. "I admit that you are one of the most attractive women I have ever met. But this doesn't mean that the bargaining chips you mentioned can really make me go to England and kill a large number of royal family members." 13 sneered and faced Catherine. "Although I'm not afraid, it will be really troublesome." Catherine suddenly kissed 13's lips. Like a wild cat, she bit 13's lips. When they parted, a strand of saliva flowed out. "You will agree to it because I believe that you won't reject my other identity." Catherine's eyes were filled with determination. 13 closed his eyes in enjoyment. Only by sticking close to this voluptuous beauty could he clearly feel the intense stimulation this woman brought to his senses. "Tell me your last reason." "If your last reason can't convince me, I don't mind enjoying your body before killing you and your mother," 13 said calmly. Kathleen bit her red lips, and all the coquettish expression quietly disappeared. Her eyes were as clear as the azure sea, leaving only a faint sadness and emotion. A smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. I'm a mother who will do anything to let her child live. The hotel's white floor-to-ceiling curtains fluttered in the breeze. The morning light shone into the room, revealing the messy scene in the room. A new day in Paris quietly opened its eyes. Clothes, shoes, and socks were scattered on the floor. Most of the tables and chairs had been moved to the wrong position. A lamp had somehow fallen to the ground, and the bed in the middle of the room had shifted more than 10 centimeters from its original position. On the soft and comfortable bed, two naked bodies were entwined together. There was only a thin bedsheet covering both of them. A lazy, beautiful woman with amber long hair had a large portion of her skin exposed to the air. Her chest was covered by a man's hand, and the soft flesh was directly deformed. Below, her white buttocks and slender legs were also pressed down by the man domineeringly, unable to move at all. If one looked closely, one could see that there were many red handprints on her plump buttocks. They had been slapped many times and hadn't faded even after a night. And the woman moved her body and drowsily opened her eyes. She realized that she couldn't get up at all. Her body was pinched by the man behind her, and she couldn't help but mischievously shake her buttocks backward. This shake caused the woman to suffer a great loss. With the sound of an oriole's cry, the woman realized that there was a hard, bad thing stuck tightly in the gap between her buttocks. I knew you'd move around the moment you woke up. That's why I've been stuffing my weapon into your back door for the entire night. Yangshan opened his eyes and smiled smugly by Catherine's ear. Kathleen angrily pouted. You're still so bad. You took advantage of me fainting to do this kind of thing. You haven't improved at all. You haven't done it in over 2 years, so why did you faint on the 9th round? Yang Chung helplessly sighed. Last night, he crazily ravaged the entire room, as if he hadn't had enough fun. Kathleen felt the thing inside her body grow larger and larger, as if it was expanding. Her face turned red, and her heart raced. Her breathing became heavier. Chun, don't be like this. Put away your treasure. I'm going to get up. Don't you like it when I enter from your back? It's so hot inside. I haven't done it in 2 years, but it's even more comfortable. It's early in the morning, so do me a favor and let this thing cool down, Yang Chung said with a serious expression. Kathleen's pretty face paled. Please don't. If you do it again, I'll be late for the Fashion Week event. You're so bad. Wouldn't it hurt to leave it there for the whole night? Actually, I just forgot to pull it out. You were the one who clamped it tightly. Yang Chung teased her without any conscience. Kathleen pouted. You're a big bad person. To think that my Jane always wants to be your woman. If she really becomes your woman in the future, won't she still get bullied by you like I did? Only then did Yang Chung pause. The evil smile on his face disappeared. Then he separated himself from Kathleen's private parts, sat up on the bed, and said, Kathleen, try to persuade Jane. In her eyes, perhaps I'm a benefactor who helped you and your daughter reclaim the throne and killed the enemy. I think that she did all these things for me to a large extent to repay a debt of gratitude. However, I'm a little afraid to face her every time. After all, I helped you guys back then because of a deal between us. Kathleen felt the burning object leave her body and let out a sigh of relief. When she heard Yang Cheng's words, she smiled. Did you think that my treasure Jane wouldn't have guessed the deal I made with you and the things I did with you? Yang Chung furrowed his brows. So she knew all along. Of course, I'm not as smart as Jane. I can't hide it from her. Kathleen smiled and sat up from the bed. However, her body felt light after a night of lovemaking. She could only sit on the bed and rest for a while. Then she said, Actually, do you know? To us, you're not just someone who made a deal with us. In fact, if it weren't for you, the two of us would have been abandoned by the world. Yang Chung raised his head and looked at Kathleen's smooth and flawless back in a daze. I'm the daughter of the Rothschild family, and I'm married into the Welsh royal family for the sake of the family's interests. However, when we were being persecuted by the English royal family, the family gave up on us for the sake of the family's interests. Even our loved ones have given up on us. Who else can we rely on? Kathleen turned around and smiled brightly. If it weren't for you who foolishly made a deal with me, We really wouldn't even be human. Yang Cheng opened his mouth, but when the words were at the tip of his tongue, he realized that there was nothing else he could say. He chuckled. If that's the case, I'm more like a priest now. Kathleen also chuckled. It was obvious that when she thought about what happened in the past, it had turned from a sad memory to a colorful one. At this moment, the doorbell of the room rang. Chapter 511. The sudden doorbell made Yang Cheng flip over on the bed and stand up. He made a shush gesture to Catherine and whispered, "Hurry up and put on your clothes. I'll see who's outside before I open the door." Catherine seemed to have understood something immediately. She covered her mouth and chuckled. She said mischievously, "I thought your marriage was just a farce, but it seems like you really care about that person. I'm a little jealous." "Oh yeah. Are you afraid that your wife will see you and you won't be able to explain yourself?" Yangqing knew the reason why Catherine was laughing. After all, he used to not care about women at all. Now that he was so worried and nervous, he had really changed a lot. "It's good that you know. If that person in my family comes and sees you naked in my room, even if I don't die, I'll be frozen by her cold eyes for 3 months," Yang Cheng said gloomily. Catherine snorted coquettishly and stuck her tongue out at Yang Cheng. She turned back into her usual childish self, making it hard to tell which side of this woman was real. "I won't let anyone see me naked. I know how to put on my clothes even if you don't tell me," Catherine mumbled. She had already started to pick up the clothes on the floor and put them on one by one. The doorbell rang a few more times. Yang Cheng was fast. After putting on his clothes, he scratched his messy hair and walked to the door. He looked through the peephole. Yang Cheng had martial arts, but he still felt that seeing was believing. He didn't dare to casually rely on his feelings to determine who was outside. When he saw who it was, Yang Cheng was relieved. He patted his chest and turned to Catherine. "It's Edward. Seems like he's here to pick you up." Catherine had already covered her voluptuous figure with a relatively thin white shirt. However, the shirt was translucent, and the purple lace underwear underneath could be vaguely seen. She wore a pair of youthful, light-colored denim shorts that barely wrapped around her pair of round thighs, making Catherine, who didn't look very old, look as lively and playful as a young girl in her 20s. This kind of clothing was probably worn to hide her identity. Otherwise, it would be too casual on a social occasion. Actually, I already knew. Last night, I asked Edward to pick me up in the morning. Since Jane isn't by my side, I'm more comfortable with him doing things. Catherine walked to the door and hugged Yang Cheng's neck. She leaned forward and kissed his lips. She smiled and said, "Dear Chen Chun, I'm leaving. If you still want it tonight, I'll come again. But you're not allowed to go through the back door." Her parting words almost made Yang Chen's eyes spit fire again. Not only did this woman look like a seductress, even her words and actions were exquisite to the point of captivating. Even sitting on the queen's throne didn't make you restrain yourself. Yang Cheng smiled bitterly. "In front of you, I just want to be the same as before, a pitiful woman who needs to rely on you. I really like that feeling." Catherine pursed her lips and smiled. "I really don't know what to do with you." Yang Cheng reached out and slapped the woman's "but go out." "Although Edward isn't an outsider, we can't let him stand at the door all the time." Catherine stopped fooling around and obediently opened the door. She greeted Edward, who had a strange smile on his face. "Hua Hua, you're up really early. It's not good to have menopause so early." Edward, who was just about to make fun of Yang Cheng and Catherine, had the urge to vomit blood when he heard this. He rolled his eyes in annoyance. "Aunt, you really know how to strike first." "Of course. After all, the smart Jane was born in my stomach. As a mother, I definitely won't be bad." Catherine pointed at her stomach proudly. The two joked around and then bid farewell to Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng stood at the door. He had just sent Catherine out. He was about to say goodbye, but when the words reached his mouth, he couldn't say a single word. Just then, from the corner of the corridor not far away, a slim figure happened to walk out. She wore an aqua blue blouse, a simple beige blazer, paired with a short white lace pleated skirt, and a pair of crystal glossy black heels under her clean white stockings. Lin Ruoshi, who had dressed up meticulously, seemed to be in a good mood. Her footsteps were light, and she walked elegantly as usual. However, The moment she raised her head, she saw Catherine walking out of Yang Cheng's room. In an instant, Lin Ruoshi's cold face fell into a daze naturally. Yang Cheng also noticed this situation. However, it just so happened that he had to send Catherine out of the room, and he even slapped Catherine's butt. In this kind of situation, there was nothing he could do. When he saw Lin Ruoshi's face gradually turning into a glacier after staring blankly at him, Yang Cheng could only smile bitterly in his heart. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. There was nothing else he could think of. Catherine and Edward also noticed the strange expression on Yang Cheng's face. They followed Yang Cheng's gaze and saw the woman standing at the corner not far away. They instantly understood the situation. Catherine was like a child who had done something wrong. She shrunk her head and secretly gave Edward a look, signaling him to leave quickly. Then, she lowered her head and almost ran away. Edward gave Yang Cheng a helpless expression that said, "I'd like to help, but I can't." Then, he hurriedly fled the scene with Catherine. When Catherine and Lin Ruoshi brushed past each other, Catherine couldn't help but sneak a closer look at Lin Ruoshi's face. It would have been better if she hadn't looked, but when she did, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. She pursed her lips and almost cried. She was beautiful, but why did she have such a cold aura? She really was going to freeze people to death. That bad boy really was an ordinary person. He even dared to marry a wife like this. Catherine's mind was in a mess, but her feet didn't stop. She quickly took the elevator with Edward. Yang Cheng stood at the door, feeling uncomfortable no matter how he stood or how he placed his hands. Facing Lin Ruoshi's expressionless face, he smiled guiltily and said, "That, wife, why are you awake so early? I thought you needed to rest more. I'll tidy up a little and go to work with you." Lin Ruoshi ignored Yang Cheng, as if she didn't hear anything. She turned around and was about to leave. Yang Cheng hurriedly chased after her. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Lin Ruoshi. He grabbed Lin Ruoshi's shoulders with both hands, not letting her go. Yang Cheng wanted to explain something, but when the words came to his mouth, he didn't know how to say it. What did he explain? Say that Catherine was just here to visit? Just an ordinary friend? If that was the case, he even felt that it was low class to lie. Lin Ruoshi raised her head. Her eyes were as cold as the abyss. She revealed a sneer of ridicule. "What? You don't even know how to explain, right?" Yang Cheng was silent. He knew that he couldn't lie to this woman. Although Lin Ruoshi didn't have much experience in relationships, it didn't mean that she was easy to fool. More importantly, Yang Cheng didn't want to lie to her. Lin Ruoshi's eyes were a little red, but she didn't have any intention of crying. Instead, this kind of expression, in Yang Cheng's eyes, was even more hurtful. "Let go, don't touch me," Lin Ruoshi coldly ordered, staring at Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng's hands trembled. Even if he held a heavy machine gun with one hand for an entire day, he wouldn't tremble in the slightest. At this moment, it was as if all his strength had been sucked out. He softly fell down and let go of Lin Ruoshi's shoulder. "I'm sorry." Yang Cheng closed his eyes. "Although I know these 3 words are very cheap, especially at a time like this, I have nothing else to say other than I'm sorry. Nothing else to say." What a perfect answer. Lin Ruoshi smiled miserably. She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. She turned her head and said in a faint voice, "Didn't you ask me yesterday if in my eyes you are a man who wants to trick me into bed all day long? I didn't understand at that time, so I didn't tell you. Now to answer you." Lin Ruoshi paused and sneered. "It's not a matter of whether I want to or not. You are simply not worthy of suspicion." Ding dong. The elevator door opened at this moment, and a waiter walked out. Lin Ruoshi didn't say anything else and directly walked into the elevator. Yang Cheng didn't turn around. He heard the sound of the elevator door closing and stood dumbfounded on the spot. After a long time, a self-mocking smile appeared on Yang Cheng's face. His body shook as he laughed crazily. Slapping his forehead, Yang Cheng let out a sigh and muttered to himself, "Yang Cheng. Oh, Yang Cheng. It's not easy to be blessed with multiple lovers." Grand Hotel Sophia's lobby on the 1st floor. When Lin Ruoshi walked out of the elevator, Her mind was in a daze, and her eyes were a little red. However, her rationality told her that this wasn't the time to shed tears for that man. He wasn't worthy of her tears either. When no one was paying attention, Lin Ruashi used her finger to wipe the corner of her eyes. Although her eyes were still red, it didn't matter if one didn't take a closer look. Goodman was rather reliable. A full-time chauffeur for these few days had already been arranged and was waiting at the VIP parking lot outside the hotel. Lin Ruashi knew that she still had work to do. She didn't dare to delay and quicken her pace. No matter how much pain and unwillingness she felt, her strong and independent heart was the biggest support she had for all these years. Just when Lin Ruashi walked past an Italian cafe in the hotel, she suddenly heard someone calling her, "Miss Lin, Miss Lin." Lin Ruashi looked in the direction of the cafe. The voice sounded familiar. "Here, here. Can you come over for a moment?" She saw a handsome man in a pink Versace shirt waving at her from a corner of the cafe. Beside the man sat a graceful silver-haired beauty who was also smiling and waving at her. "Mr. Stern, Miss Alice." Lin Ruashi murmured their names. "Aren't they the Cromwell siblings that I met last night when I was escaping? Why are they calling me?" In Lin Ruashi's opinion, an old aristocratic family like the Cromwell family in England would definitely look down on businessmen. Therefore, although she had a life-and-death friendship with the siblings, they wouldn't cross paths in the future since everyone was safe. Therefore, when she saw Stern greeting her passionately, Lin Ruashi was confused. She didn't even think about the heart-wrenching incident with Yang Cheng. Chapter 512. You two are up very early. Lin Ruashi calmed herself down and tried to smile warmly. She walked into the cafe and approached the Stern siblings, asking, "Why did you call me over?" Stern's smile became brighter and brighter with a hint of shyness. Miss Lin, do you have any money on you?" Stern asked softly. Lin Ruashi was stunned. If she didn't know that the siblings weren't lacking in money, Lin Ruashi would have suspected that they were trying to extort her. "Yes, what's wrong?" Lin Ruashi was even more confused. Stern chuckled and said, "It's like this. My dear and I came down for coffee in the morning, but after we drank, we remembered that our bank cards and cash were all left in the car when we were hijacked yesterday. We don't have any money at all now. Can you—" Looking at the siblings who were looking at her eagerly, Lin Ruashi almost laughed out rudely. She nodded in understanding and said, "I understand. Just treat it as my treat. But you two have to contact your family. Even if you can't find the lost items, you have to send some over. Miss Lin, you're the best. You're our Holy Mother Mary." Alice suddenly pounced forward and hugged Lin Ruashi's neck. She kissed Lin Ruashi on the cheek. This was the first time Lin Ruashi had been kissed by a woman since she was young. She was even treated as a holy mother. She couldn't help but be stunned. "Alice, baby, I want a kiss too." Stern was jealous and asked for a kiss from his sister. Alice giggled and very generously kissed her elder brother on the lips twice. Lin Ruashi suddenly recalled that this pair of siblings had an indiscriminate relationship. She couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. Her cheek that was kissed by Alice also felt a strange itch. She wasn't sure if it was a psychological effect. After paying for the coffee for the siblings, Lin Ruashi was about to say goodbye to them, but Alice seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Miss Lin, are you going to the Fashion Week launch?" Lin Ruashi nodded. "I'm the invited manufacturer's representative. What about you two?" I knew it. Yulei International is one of the biggest fashion companies in Asia, so we'll definitely participate. Alice clapped her hand happily and said, "We're also invited representatives of our family. But Miss Lin, we don't have a car anymore, we don't have a driver, and we don't have any money. You see, Looking at Alice's bashful face and Stern's expectant expression, Lin Ruashi found it a little funny. Although this pair of siblings were a little messy, they were, to be honest, very cute. "Did you guys decide to wait for me downstairs early in the morning?" Lin Ruashi joked. Stern's face was full of panic as he widened his eyes. No. We were just trying our luck. If we met someone we knew, we would randomly capture them." "Brother," Alice's almond-shaped eyes widened as she interrupted Stern's words. She lowered her voice and said, "Why did you say the truth? Stern looked embarrassed as he scratched his head awkwardly. The siblings' performance was like a farce, making Lin Ruashi feel much better as she watched from the side. If that's the case, if you two don't mind, please come with me. I don't have a companion anyway, so we can chat together. Lin Ruashi didn't mind building a relationship with the Cromwell family. After all, it would be helpful to the company's business in Europe. Naturally, the Stern siblings were elated. They flattered Lin Ruashi again before walking out of the hotel together with Lin Ruashi. Goodman prepared a black Maybach 62 for Lin Ruashi. The original Bentley had suffered quite a bit of damage and had been sent for maintenance. However, compared to the Bentley, the price of the two Maybachs was a notch higher, and they looked more luxurious and graceful. The three of them sat in the car. As the host, Lin Ruashi naturally gave the siblings the back seat and sat in the front passenger seat. After fastening her seatbelt, Lin Ruashi said to the driver, "Go to do Lely." "Yes, ma, I am." The driver's voice sounded a little familiar. Lin Ruashi raised her head abruptly and was shocked to find that the driver was none other than Yang Chung, who had just angered her. Yang Chung changed into a formal suit and tie and sat in the driver's seat. He wasn't eye-catching to begin with, so she didn't realize it was him when he entered the car. When Lin Ruashi wanted to alight, the car had already started and drove out of the hotel. "Stop the car and get out," Lin Ruashi said through gritted teeth. Of course, Yang Chung wouldn't listen to her obediently. He searched for the address of Du Lely Garden on the GPS on the car's dashboard and said, "Dear, they have guests sitting in the back." It's not good to argue. Lin Ruashi then realized that the siblings, Stern and Alice, were looking at her with gossipy eyes, as if they wanted to know why she was so dissatisfied with Yang Chung. Being stared at by others, Lin Ruashi could only endure it for now. She looked at the street in front angrily and ignored Yang Chung. Du Lely Garden used to be a private leisure place for the royal family. Located between the Louvre and the Place de la Concorde, there were many statues, and it was known as an open-air museum. Because one side of the garden was next to the world-famous Seine River, sitting by the big pond in the garden or drinking a cup of fragrant Blue Mountain coffee at an open-air cafe was the best experience to experience Parisian leisure. Chestnut trees, lime trees, and colorful flowers brought tranquility to Du Lely Garden. The bronze sculptures added a solemn atmosphere, and the overall neat and refreshing landscape design was typical of French gardens. Because of Fashion Week, everything in and out of the garden was busier than usual. The police sent out a large number of police officers to ensure that the distinguished guests could safely enjoy every fashion show. After Yang Chung drove the car to the exclusive parking area for VIPs, the four of them got out of the car and walked towards the garden's gate. Before they reached the gate, polite security guards walked up to them and asked them to show their invitations and a series of IDs. Then they sent out male and female security guards to check if the four of them were carrying any dangerous items. Alice was a little dissatisfied with her body being touched by the female security guard. She pouted and said, "It seems that the Paris municipal government was scared by the kidnappers. There weren't so many checks during last year's Fashion Week. For the sake of safety, this is what we should do. We can't just kill one wave of kidnappers and another wave of kidnappers. Am I right, Babe Ruashi?" Yang Chun smiled and winked at Lin Ruashi, who had an indifferent expression. Lin Ruashi completely ignored Yang Chung. After the security guards finished their search, she took the lead and walked through the gate. Stern was very interested as he approached Yang Chun. "Mr. Yang, did something happen between you and Miss Lin? I'm the most knowledgeable when it comes to relationships between men and women. You can tell me about it, and I'll tell you how to solve it." Yang Chung was not surprised by Lin Ruashi's reaction. He knew that she would be like this. His previous Cold War experience made him fully prepared. Hearing Stern's words, Yang Chun reached out his hand and patted his shoulder with a smile. "Brother, I think your experience between men and women is useless to me. This one here isn't my biological sister." Stern touched his chin and asked, "What's the difference?" "There's a big difference," Yang Chung said seriously. Stern had a serious expression on his face. "Then I will find time to study it. Do you want to see Satan, damn you, Stern?" Alice, who heard the conversation between the two, suddenly used all her strength. She pinched Stern's cheeks and pulled them to both sides fiercely. She shouted, "If you dare to find another woman to experiment with behind my back, you're finished. No, no, you are the only one I will ever love, my dearest sister Alice." Stern cried out in a loud voice, begging for mercy. This scene instantly attracted the attention of the surrounding guests. Many of them whispered to each other, but their voices still reached Yang Chen's and the others' ears. Are they the brother and sister from the Cromwell family? That's them. It's a pity for this handsome man and beautiful woman. Humph, they really have no sense of shame, ruining the reputation of their ancestors. The disgrace of the nobles, hearing the discussions around him. Yang Cheng grinned. It seems that you siblings are quite well known. Of course. Stern shook his head proudly. He held Alice's arm and walked into the garden with his head held high. He did not care about the gazes of others. Yang Cheng was not someone who cared about these things. Together with the Stern siblings, he caught up with Lin Ruoshi. The four of them arrived at the exhibition stage of the fashion show. The morning sun was warm and beautiful. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of flowers. The shuttling of guests and waiters made the entire open-air venue seem busy and orderly. Rows of white chairs were placed along the stage, from the front to the back, from near to far. They were all placed in a particular order. The distinguished guests of high status naturally sat at the front, while the ordinary representatives of the manufacturers and celebrities could only sit at the back. After Lin Ruoshi showed her identification, she was led by a white waitress to the first row in front of the exhibition stage. Although it was not the centermost seat, it was still the highest class seat. Lin Ruoshi sat in the front row, which seemed to have surprised the Stern siblings. Alice couldn't help but exclaim, "I heard that Ulay International's new materials took a leading position in the world this year, but I didn't expect it to have reached this point. Miss Lin is really an outstanding entrepreneur at such a young age. It's amazing." Everyone liked to hear compliments. To Lin Ruoshi, she didn't care too much about others praising her beauty because it was something she was born with. She was already used to it. However, she was still very happy to hear others complimenting her work achievements. Thus, she smiled and said, "Thank you." Then, she asked politely, "Where are the two of you?" Stern pointed to the seat next to Lin Ruoshi and said, "What a coincidence, it's right next to Miss Lin." With the strength of the Cromwell family, Lin Ruoshi did not find it strange that they could sit in the first row. She smiled and nodded, then sat down. As Lin Ruoshi's attendant, Yang Cheng, of course, did not receive such good treatment. Under the instructions of the waitress, he sat in the row behind Lin Ruoshi, playing the role of an assistant. Yang Cheng did not mind. For him, following Lin Ruoshi and finding opportunities to appease Lin Ruoshi's dissatisfaction with him was his top priority. However, the four of them had just sat down for less than 10 seconds when a few unfamiliar figures suddenly walked in front of Lin Ruoshi and stood still. Chapter 5:13. Lin Ruoshi was about to take out the documents and pen for the fashion conference from her briefcase when she felt the light in front of her being blocked by a group of people. She couldn't help but raise her head curiously. In front of her was a chestnut-haired beauty wearing a light pink-brimmed hat and a Milano-style dress. She was tall, at least 7 meters tall, and exuded pride and luxury from her bones. She had a dazzling crystal lipstick, a high-nose bridge, long curved eyelashes visible through the light-colored sunglasses, a delicate foundation, and a lingering Saint Laurent perfume. Beside the lady in the hat stood 2 tall bodyguards in suits. They wore sunglasses and looked very dignified. Lin Ruoshi frowned. She could feel that this woman came with ill intentions, but she didn't recognize her. "Get lost," the woman suddenly said in perfect English with a London accent. Lin Ruoshi was slightly stunned. She didn't expect such a dignified and elegant woman to say such rude words. But after a short while, Lin Ruoshi reacted. Her face gradually turned cold, and she continued to lower her head, choosing to ignore her, and began to search for the materials she wanted. "Humph," the woman sneered, pretending not to hear me. "Or are you deaf or blind?" Lin Ruoshi stopped what she was doing and raised her head. "Although I don't know who you are, I don't want to argue with an unreasonable and crazy woman in this kind of situation. This is my seat. I don't know why you want me to leave, but I can tell you that it's impossible." The woman took off her sunglasses, and a pair of phoenix eyes looked down at Lin Ruashi arrogantly. "The first row isn't for a small businessman like you. Everyone in the first row, except for you, knows me. You don't know me because you're not qualified to sit in the first row. Meryl, clean up your bad temper. This seat belongs to Miss Lin. You didn't reserve it yourself, so there's no reason for someone else to give it to you." Stern, who had been silent all this while, interrupted. It was obvious that he knew this woman called Meryl. "Stern, you'd better hold on to your Alice and take care of yourselves. If I were any of you, I wouldn't have the face to walk out of the house. Siblings of the aristocracy, do you have the right to talk about me?" Meryl mocked coldly. Alice flicked her shoulder-length silver hair and pursed her lips. She said to Lin Ruashi, "Miss Lin, this big-breasted, small-brained woman is called Meryl. She's a relative of England's royal family, the Queen's granddaughter. Her bad temper is only because she has the love of the Queen's maternal grandmother and the connections of the Stuart family. She herself is just a stupid woman without any redeeming qualities, so the wise Miss Lin can completely ignore her." "Alice, how dare you insult me?" Meryl screamed. "Do you think I'm really afraid of you just because you're from Duke Cromwell's mansion? You're provoking my family." A series of loud curses naturally attracted the attention of many guests around them. However, most of those with high enough status knew Meryl and Stern. Although they knew that Meryl was throwing a tantrum again, no one would stand up for the young Lin Ruashi. Yang Chung sat on his seat with interest. He watched Meryl yelling at Lin Ruashi. Although he had already decided to give this woman a taste of her own medicine, he wasn't in a hurry. After all, this was a public place. He didn't mind if he acted rashly. However, Lin Ruashi had to do business with many people present. If she acted too violently, she would definitely face a lot of headaches. However, the staff of the venue didn't dare to make a scene. Immediately, a man in a white suit who was in charge of maintaining order humbly ran to Lin Ruashi and Meryl's side. He bowed and greeted Meryl before asking, "Miss Sturt, may I know what has made you so angry?" Meryl was obviously a regular guest that she had known for a long time. Her tone was extremely flattering. "I didn't expect that after a year, the first row of Tillery's garden would be so degraded. Who does this woman think she is? Why does she have to sit in the first row?" Meryl pointed at Lin Ruashi. The person in charge smiled stiffly. "Miss Stewart, please listen to my explanation. This seat was originally yours, but you went to Sweden and said that you weren't free. So we arranged for Miss Lin, the CEO of Ulay International, to sit here. Miss Lin's Ulay International is currently one of the largest fashion companies in the world, and she's also our distinguished guest. Please understand." "Haha, Ulay International? What joke. It's just a lousy company, and you guys are treating this woman like a treasure? Ridiculous." Meryl ridiculed. "It's true that I went to Sweden to attend the Crown Prince's wedding, but I'm already back here. Don't tell me that you guys want me to sit behind this woman." The person in charge's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He didn't know what to do. He looked at Meryl, then at Lin Ruashi. He didn't dare to offend either side. Lin Ruashi had been quietly listening to Meryl's unreasonable request. In the end, she revealed a sneer and said with a cold gaze, "I'll sit here because this is my job, and this is where I should sit. What you think and want to do has nothing to do with me." After that, Lin Ruashi ignored Meryl. She took out a document from her briefcase and started reading it. Meryl flew into a rage after being ignored by Chi Luoluo. Lowly commoner, do you really think that I won't dare to do anything to a lowly woman like you? Meryl, enough is enough. Otherwise, you'll suffer." Stern smiled mischievously. "Shut up. It's not your place to scare me." Meryl clenched her teeth and said, "Since the person in charge doesn't dare, I'll kick you out myself. You asked for it. Originally, everything would have been fine if you had just obediently given up the seat that doesn't belong to you. Why must you use your lowly status to challenge the glory of the Stuart family? Huaxia's woman, Don't think that you have any status just because you've earned some money. I'll let you know how lowly you are." After that, Meryl clapped her hands and said to the 4 bodyguards beside her, "Throw this woman into the Seine River and let her swim far away. I'll take responsibility for all the consequences." "Yes, miss," the 4 bodyguards answered in a loud voice. They were very decisive. They must have done this kind of thing often, so they were not surprised at all. Lin Ruashi didn't expect this woman named Meryl to be this crazy. She actually dared to do such a thing in this venue with so many famous people watching. Lin Ruashi finally panicked when she heard the 4 bodyguards' response. She was just an ordinary girl. How could she possibly defend herself against these tall and burly white bodyguards? Looking around, she noticed that the stern siblings were sitting there with a strange expression on their faces. She couldn't tell what they were thinking about, while the other guests and staff all pretended not to see anything. Some of them were whispering to each other, waiting to see Lin Ruashi thrown into the river. No one was willing to step forward to stop Meryl. For a moment, Lin Ruashi's heart sank. Her only hope was Yang Chung, who was behind her. However, when Lin Ruashi turned around, she saw Yang Chung with his arms crossed in front of his chest. He looked like he was watching a good show. He even raised his eyebrows at her. "This despicable guy, is he going to watch me get thrown into the river too? Is it because I'm dissatisfied with what happened in the morning? Or is he afraid too?" Suddenly, a scream came from behind Lin Ruashi. Lin Ruashi abruptly turned around, only to be shocked to find that one of the 4 bodyguards who was about to step forward had a hideous expression on his face as he cried out in pain. Then, he softly fell to the ground. A tall and burly red-haired man appeared behind the bodyguards. It was his hand that had quietly grabbed the back of the bodyguard's neck just now. He directly used his grip to cause the bodyguard's arteries and blood vessels to be on the bed, causing the bodyguard to faint in an instant. TSK. What a wonderful capture. Stern, who was watching this scene, clapped his hands in praise and broke the silence of the scene. The remaining 3 bodyguards turned around and saw the red-haired middle-aged man. They were so scared that their legs turned to jelly and they retreated to the side with pale faces. When Meryl saw who it was, her beautiful face turned pale as well. Her lips trembled as she forced herself to say, Sauron. The sudden change in the scene caused many of the guests to be in a daze. However, most of them were experienced in such situations. Fainting a bodyguard would not excite or frighten them. On the contrary, those who did not know Sauron began to talk about who this red-haired man was. "Sauron? He's here too. What's going on? Why would he come to a place like this? Brother, you know him? Who's this red-haired guy? He looks so fierce. You don't even know him? His nickname is the Red-Haired Eagle King. Many British nobles like to call him the Red-Haired Devil in private because of his terrifying deeds. It's him. No wonder he dared to beat up the Duke Stuart's family here. I've heard that he was once the ace commander of the British MI5. Back then, due to a political conflict, he was hunted down by the opposition. He fled overseas for more than a month and miraculously returned to Britain. He secretly massacred dozens of important opposition figures and overwhelmingly forced the government to cancel his arrest. He even obtained the hereditary title of Earl from the Welsh royal family. The British royal family who wanted to kill him previously compromised for the first time. Even now, it's unclear how he managed to accomplish those impossible massacres. This man is not an ordinary character. Meryl is in trouble this time. Many nobles and local European tycoons were discussing Sauron's identity. It was indeed rare for such an iron-blooded character to appear at a fashion conference. However, Sauron did not pay attention to the various awe-inspiring gazes of the people around him. Instead, he took a step back and bowed his tall body respectfully. He placed one hand on his chest and the other behind his back. Facing Lin Ruashi, whose eyes were wide open, Sauron was expressionless like a steel sculpture. He spoke in a sentence with medieval English words that only Lin Ruashi could hear clearly. "Nice to meet you. My name is Sauron von Ibroanka. I'm honored to be of service to you, Honorable Lady Persephone." Persephone? This name again? Hearing this name, Lin Ruashi finally calmed down. She recalled that the president of the Swiss Bank of Zhonghai had also called her this strange name. Although Sauron's words weren't heard by the people around him, everyone could clearly see him sincerely bowing to Lin Ruoshi and performing the oath of allegiance. At this moment, the nobles with brains were already in a state of stupor. They really could not figure out why an ordinary businesswoman like Hua Xia would be able to receive the red-haired devil's allegiance. However, before they could figure it out, another scene made their eyes almost pop out. After Sauron straightened up, he walked around Lin Ruoshi and came to the side of an extremely inconspicuous young man who was half lying and half leaning on a chair. He bowed slightly and paid his respects to the man seriously. Chapter 514. The series of scenes that left the guests and the person in charge bewildered made it, so that even though it was already time for the fashion launch, no one dared start. Everyone's gaze was focused on Yang Cheng and Sauron, but no one dared to approach them. They could only try their best to listen to what Sauron and Yang Cheng were saying. Compared to Sauron's prominent bandit nickname in Europe's upper-class society, no one knew who Yang Cheng was. Some even suspected that this man might be a member of the secret royal family of Wales. After all, Sauron was most loyal to the royal family of Wales. Seriously, although I know you'll make a move, there's no need to knock her out right from the start. This guy's brain is congested. I reckon that he'll be bedridden for a few days, even if he's not an idiot. Yang Cheng was also a little helpless about Sauron's method of attack, but he did not blame him as he said this with a smile. Sauron's face was indifferent as he asked with a straight face, "Sir, should we kill this lady from the Stewart family here, or when we get out?" Sauron's question sent chills down the spines of everyone who heard him, and their bodies went limp. Kill her here, or when they get out? The young lady of the Stewart family had actually fallen to the point where she was at the mercy of someone else, and was only considering the place to kill her. Devil, this man was indeed a devil. However, what made everyone feel even more pitiful was that Meryl, who had been acting all high and mighty just a moment ago, had completely lost the strength to resist after recognizing that this person was Sauron. The remaining 3 bodyguards had already retreated to some unknown place, and they had completely lost their professionalism. Compared to their work, they valued their lives more. "Please, I beg you, please don't kill me. I know I was wrong, Sir Earl. Please let me off this time." Meryl stood there all alone. She wanted to escape, but she did not have the courage to do so. Even her feet were glued to the ground, and she could not take another step. Looking at Meryl, who had tears welling up in her eyes, many guests could not help but sigh. A noble lady who used her strength to bully the weak was nothing more than this. He simply ignored Meryl's pleading and waited for Yang Cheng's instructions. Yang Cheng thought for a moment, then leaned over to Lin Ruoshi and smiled gently. "Darling Ruoshi, this woman bullied you just now, so I'll let you decide. Do you want to kill her here or outside? Do you want to shoot her? Or do you want to run me over with a car? If it's not enough, you can throw it into the shark pool. My old friend Sauron raises many great white sharks, and they love to eat human flesh. You can put her into the pool, starting from her feet, and let the sharks bite her from the bottom to the top. Let her watch her own body, starting from her feet, slowly becoming shorter." Yang Chun intentionally spoke in English without concealing his words. Many of the people present heard it clearly. Many of the women started to feel nauseous, while the men's faces turned pale. Their gazes towards Yang Chun became fearful. Lin Ruoshi did not care who Sauron was, nor did she remember that she was determined to not be nice to Yang Cheng. Seeing Yang Cheng's cheeky face and saying such words, her heart was in a mess. After hesitating for a while, she said as calmly as possible, "There's no need to do that, right? She didn't do it that badly. That's hard to say. She wanted to throw you into the Seine today. If that's the case, the people she met earlier, if they were of a lower status than you, they might have been killed by her. Besides, with that temper of hers, it's not just a matter of 1 or 2 years. You're not the only one she's hurt," Yang Cheng said. Hearing that, Lin Ruoshi knew that Yang Cheng was speaking the truth. If she was really thrown into the Seine in front of everyone, it would be more painful than death. Meryl thought that Lin Ruoshi would let her go, But when she saw Lin Ruashi's silence, she almost went crazy. Her legs turned to jelly, and she felt her knees, wailing loudly. Although the person in charge of the scene was extremely afraid, he thought that Yang Chung was just spouting nonsense. Thus, he walked up and said in a low voice, "Sir, please don't joke around like this. Miss Merrill has already begged for a sincere apology, so that everyone can be more harmonious." Scram. Without waiting for the person in charge to continue, Sauron had already stepped in front of him. His huge, dark body stood in front of the person in charge, and he uttered a cold word. The person in charge felt a bone-piercing chill, as if the smell of blood was flowing through his nose. In an instant, he was extremely frightened, and he turned to run. "Miss Lin, you have to make a decision quickly. Everyone's waiting." Stern, who had been waiting to watch a good show from the side, chuckled. He and Alice were not afraid at all. It was the first time in her life that Lin Ruashi could decide someone's life or death. In the end, she shook her head and said, "Don't kill her. Let her go. At most, teach her a lesson so that she won't act like that again." "I knew it. You're too soft-hearted." Yang Chung smiled knowingly. When Meryl heard that Lin Ruashi did not intend to kill her, she immediately burst into tears of joy. She threw herself in front of Lin Ruashi and kept saying, "Thank you." Lin Ruashi frowned. She felt disgusted when she saw Meryl trying to curry favor with her. "Miss Lin, I will never forget your kindness. Our Stewart family will definitely repay you," Meryl said while sobbing. Shut your mouth, foolish woman. Your family's name is not worthy of being mentioned here," Sauron said coldly. Meryl immediately shrank her neck and backed away. She kept nodding, indicating that she would not talk about it anymore. Although she was arrogant by nature, it did not mean that she did not know her place. Facing a madman like Sauron, who even the royal family feared, her life was really worthless. "Since my dear said not to kill her, then I won't kill her." Yang Chung pursed his lips and thought for a while. He then said to Sauron, "How about this? Leave it to our subordinates. Tell her family that we will discipline this woman on their behalf." "Your Excellency, how do you want to discipline her?" Sauron asked. "There's no need to be too bloody or violent. My wife said that she wants a small punishment, so just crush all of her fingers and toes." Yang Chung said casually. Meryl, who had just caught her breath, suddenly felt as if she had fallen into a bottomless abyss again. She was so stunned that she forgot to breathe. Yang Chung was not done yet. He continued, "Don't crush all of her fingers and toes in one day. Crush one every day, every 20 days. This way, she can recover as she breaks them. Let's make it 3 rounds. That's exactly 2 months. Remember to get a doctor to keep an eye on her. Don't let her die." "Understood," Sauron agreed without hesitation. After hearing these words, Meryl's eyes rolled back and she fainted on the spot. Almost everyone in the hall held their breath. The small punishment that Yang Chung mentioned made their scalps go numb. Out of nowhere, 2 well-built soldiers in blue uniforms carried the unconscious Meryl out of the hall. Along the way, no one dared to stop them. Lin Ruashi watched the series of events unfold in front of her. She had mixed feelings. She stole a glance at Yang Chung and happened to see Yang Chung smiling at her. "Let's find a quiet place and have a chat," Yang Chung said with a smile. Without waiting for Lin Ruashi's reply, he walked to a resting area by the river. Lin Ruashi bit her lips and took a deep breath. She got up, put her bag and documents on a chair, and followed Yang Chung. The people in the hall no longer dared to ignore the identities of Yang Chung and Lin Ruashi after what happened just now. As soon as the 2 of them walked to the resting area, the guests who were originally sitting there dispersed. Yang Chung walked to the railing by the river and looked at it for a while. He only turned around when Lin Ruashi walked to his side. "Do you think I'm too cruel, or do you have a lot of questions?" Yang Chung asked. Lin Ruashi ran her fingers through her hair that was messed up by the wind and shook her head. "I don't know. I don't know if I should be happy that you did this for me, or regret that I didn't stop you." "That's it? You don't have any other questions?" Yang Chung laughed self-deprecatingly. "To be honest, I've always been curious. Baby, do you have any curiosity at all?" I remember telling you that if you want to tell me, you'll naturally tell me. If you don't want to say it, I won't ask. Lin Ruoshi said faintly. Yang Cheng smiled bitterly. But I don't think that's good. If you don't ask, I won't explain. All right then. What do you think I should ask you? Lin Ruoshi sorted out her feelings and asked. Yang Cheng was slightly stunned. He thought for a while and pouted at Sauron, who was standing not far behind him. For example, who this guy is. For example, why I know him. For example, why I don't take killing seriously. Also, aren't you curious about the woman who walked out of my room this morning? Actually, you should have asked these questions earlier. So what if I got the answer? Lin Ruoshi's eyes turned sour. Actually, even if you don't say it, I can feel it. You're not an ordinary person. The more time I spend with you, the more I feel that you and I don't belong in the same world. You can casually take out 100 billion euros from a Swiss bank. You're much richer than me. My money may be an astronomical figure in the eyes of ordinary people, but it's just a small amount of money to you. In terms of power, you don't even need to think about it. You can kill anyone you want to kill. When you're in Zhonghai, you can cause chaos in the gangs. You can make Xiangwei the ruler of Zhonghai's underground. I know you must have an extraordinary identity for the government to allow you to do this. But so what? Just because you're richer than me, you have more power than me, and you can do things that I can't. I have to be very understanding when you're with other women and happily watch strange foreign women walk out of your room? Or should I be tolerant and accept every woman around you, thinking that you're born to live among women? Lin Ruoshi's words were very gentle, but in Yang Cheng's ears, it was like a spring thunder. Yes, why did she ask? So what if she asked? Didn't she know enough? Could it be that if she knew everything about him, she would be happy and willingly stick to him like a little bird, offering everything to him? If that was the case, she wouldn't be his wife. She would just be a woman that he bought with a high price. Your words are really hurtful, Yang Chun said with a bitter smile. Lin Ruoshi took a deep breath. Her eyes were slightly moist. She looked at the yacht slowly sailing on the river in the distance and said faintly, If you really want me to ask you, then I'll ask you a question. Ask away. I can tell you everything I know. 17. Chapter 5:15. The sparkling Seine River was calm and serene. On the shore, a few tall and straight French sycamore trees spread out their huge canopies, and the huge green and yellow leaves rustled in the wind. The leaves of this kind of sycamore could often survive the cold winter, and only around spring would they waver and wither. At this moment, there were a few yellow leaves that were blown down by the wind. As they fluttered, they finally landed on the railing of the garden and rested quietly. Yang Cheng blankly looked at the black soil in front of his feet. He didn't know how much time had passed. It seemed like a long time, but it seemed like only a few seconds. He only felt that his mind had gone blank for a moment. After a long time, he turned his head to look at Lin Ruoshi's indifferent expression and forced a smile. You hope I don't know? Actually, I don't have to be surprised. It must be that big-mouth Christine who told you. Yang Cheng smiled bitterly. She told me some, but I want to hear it from you personally. Of course, you can choose not to answer, Lin Ruoshi said. There's nothing to hope for. Whether you know it or not, this is a past that exists. It's just like the stupid things that everyone does when they are young. When they grow up, they will be ashamed to talk about it. But what exists is what exists. If you try your best to forget it, there will always be people who remember it. Yang Cheng smiled. Of course, the matter between me and 17 can't be considered as simple as a child doing stupid things. I've never thought of forgetting her in the past. No matter what, I'm very happy that you found out about 17 from Christine. This at least means that you will chat with her in private for me. Lin Ruoshi was still expressionless. She looked at Yang Cheng in silence for a while and asked faintly, You still love her, right? Yang Cheng shook his head, looked ahead, and said, Love? I don't know. We already knew each other when we were kids. In the 21 or 22 years before I returned to Huaxia, she had always been the most special existence by my side. She's not my friend, because her feelings are deeper than that of a friend. We can fight for each other. She is not my lover, because we have never been in love, not even sent each other any keepsake. She's also not my lover. She never listens to me. Otherwise, she wouldn't have willfully left my side. She is such a special woman. Lin Ruoshi listened quietly, looking at Yang Cheng's face that was sometimes smiling and sometimes in pain. Lin Ruoshi didn't know why, but she felt that her heart was aching, as if countless needles were constantly pricking the tender flesh of her heart. However, Lin Ruoshi couldn't tell whether it was for him or for herself. If you want to ask me if I still love her, I don't know how to tell you. I've never said, I love you to 17. I've said more words of love to her than I've said to you in one day. I've always felt that she is like the other half of my life. When I'm with her, even if I know that my world is dark, I will still feel at ease. This is how I feel about her. Does that count as an answer to your question? Yang Cheng finished speaking and asked with a smile. Lin Ruoshi didn't answer, but continued to ask, Kristen told me that I look very similar to 17. Is that true? Yes, your temperament and your eyes are very similar to 17's, very similar. However, 17 isn't as beautiful as you. Kristen has only met 17 once, when she was in America. She doesn't know much about her. If she's just spouting nonsense, you can completely ignore it, Yang Cheng said. Lin Ruoshi grabbed the railing in front of her with her fair hands and couldn't help but tremble. She calmed the waves in her heart and asked, In your eyes, am I a substitute for 17? After asking this question, Lin Ruoshi seemed to have exhausted all her strength. However, she still stood up firmly and looked into Yang Cheng's eyes with her bright eyes. Yang Cheng's mind quivered. He suddenly recalled what Lin Ruoshi said when he came out from the backstage of Yoni's concert that day. Anyway, in your eyes, I'm just a substitute. That's it. That's right. She knew about 17's existence back then, and even knew that she looked similar to her. That's why she suddenly said that. Yang Cheng suddenly felt that it was very funny. He laughed out loud and almost cried. Sighing, he said, No wonder you told me that you're just a substitute for me out of the blue. Ruoshi, darling, you're too good at letting your imagination run wild. You are you, and 17 is 17. To me, 17 is a memory that can't be erased. Right now, you're my wife. If I really treated you as a substitute for 17, why would I spend so much effort hoping that you would accept me? To put it bluntly, if you're just a substitute, why would I care so much about your feelings? Lin Ruoshi stared at Yang Cheng for a while, and a strange smile suddenly appeared on her lips. Back at the cafe, I asked you to marry me, but you weren't willing. In the end, when I was about to jump off the building, you stopped me and readily agreed. At that time, you must have realized that I'm very similar to 17. That's why you changed so quickly, right? Yang Cheng didn't understand why Lin Ruoshi would suddenly think of something that happened so long ago. However, the situation back then was indeed vivid in his mind. It was the glance that Lin Ruoshi turned around before jumping off the building that reminded him of 17's resolute gaze when she left. It was undeniable that if it wasn't for that glance, Yang Cheng definitely wouldn't have agreed to marry her so readily, and so many things wouldn't have happened. Yes, as I said, your gaze and temperament are very similar to 17. Yang Cheng nodded. But that doesn't mean that I treat you as a substitute for 17. We've been through so many things together. In fact, we've understood each other's feelings many times, haven't we? Lin Ruoshi lowered her head and sneered. In that case, I should thank 17. If it wasn't because she's very similar to me, I might have jumped off the building and died. Even if I didn't die, I would have been killed by that man and Su Ji-hong. Or everything would have been taken away, and I would have become someone else's plaything. I really should thank 17, shouldn't I? At the end of her words, crystal tears suddenly welled up in Lin Ruoshi's eyes. The tears flowed down her cheeks and uncontrollably dripped onto the grass on the ground. Although Lin Ruoshi tried her best to hide it, her body trembled even more violently. Yang Cheng was rather dumbfounded. He didn't understand why Lin Ruoshi suddenly started crying. He initially thought that his answer would put Lin Ruoshi at ease and untie the knot in their hearts, allowing them to take a step forward in their relationship. However, it seemed like the result was the opposite. Lin Ruoshi, what's wrong? Didn't we talk about it? Why are you crying? I've said it many times, you're not a substitute for 17. You're unique to me. You're my wife. Why are you crying? Tell me. Yang Chung felt that things were not under his control at all. The anger in his heart began to rise. He couldn't help but raise his tone and directly called Lin Ruoshi's name. Lin Ruoshi didn't reply and continued to lower her head. Her tears were like broken pearls that kept falling down. If it weren't for the fact that most of the people in the hall were afraid of Yang Chung and that Solon was preventing people from getting close, Yang Chung might have been very depressed. Who would want to let others see that as a man, he made his own wife cry. In the end, Lin Ruoshi held back her tears and slowly raised her head. Although her eyes were red, at least they weren't as unbearable as the pear blossom in tears. The light foundation on her face was slightly melted by her tears. This woman, who had always been extremely independent and strong, now looked like a wilting tulip, especially delicate and pitiful. Yang Chung breathed a sigh of relief and tried to be as pleasant as possible. He asked, Ruoshi, what's wrong with you? I don't know what to say. Lin Ruoshi stared at Yang Cheng's face with her red and watery eyes. She smiled miserably and said, Kristen said that 17 is the only woman who is pregnant with your child. Is that true? Yang Cheng nodded slowly. This was undoubtedly the double pain in his heart forever. 17 and the child in her belly. If it weren't for this woman and the unborn child who fell into the cold cliff and died in front of him, he wouldn't have been so disheartened. He wouldn't have woken up from the desire to kill and return to Huaxia alone, planning to end his life there. Seeing Yang Cheng's dazed expression, Lin Ruoshi smiled even more miserably and said, Then let me ask you one last question. Go ahead. Yang Cheng subconsciously had a premonition of something. His heart began to feel very nervous and uneasy. Lin Ruoshi asked word by word, If 17 and the child can return to your side now and give you a chance, will you still choose to let me be your wife? Shut up. Yang Cheng suddenly roared. His expression instantly became somewhat ferocious. He stared at Lin Ruoshi with his bloodshot eyes. 17 and the child are already gone. Yang Cheng's voice trembled as he said with difficulty, This kind of question, there's no need to think about it. Looking at Yang Chen's distorted face that was close to falling into madness, Lin Ruoshi didn't seem to be afraid at all. Instead, she relaxed a little and softly said, I knew it would be like this, although you said that I'm not a substitute for 17 in your eyes. But in fact, from the moment you agreed to marry me, that's what you thought subconsciously. In your heart, you never really separated me and 17. If it wasn't for 17, I wouldn't have the chance to be your wife. Chapter 516. Lin Ruoshi's words seemed to have stirred up the past that he had sealed away for too long, as well as too many thoughts that he didn't dare to touch, all of which started to rapidly ferment and expand. Shut up. How many times do I have to tell you before you believe that it's not like what you think? Yang Cheng's head felt like it had exploded. The pain that he hadn't felt in a long time made his nerves go into a frenzy, and his temples started to throb. Yang Cheng didn't know why he was so angry and why he couldn't control himself and shouted at Lin Ruoshi. He didn't want to, but he couldn't control himself. Lin Ruoshi's gaze became cold, as if she could see through everything. Don't lie to yourself, Yang Cheng. In fact, you always knew that you would never be able to separate me and 17. You thought that we were different because you wanted to convince yourself and numb yourself. You didn't want to be a weak person in love, and you didn't want to be unable to walk out of that shadow. You tried to make yourself a new person and not a pitiful person who was depressed because of 17's departure. To you, I'm just an excuse to cover up your guilt. You're lying to yourself, and in fact, everything between us started with 17. Lin Ruoshi's words were like icy rain, falling into Yang Cheng's ears, freezing his body. If it's really like what you said, and you can separate me and 17, then why isn't Xiangwei your wife? Don't you love her? Just because she's a triad member? Do you care? If you want to, will she reject you? And Jingjing, who went to America, can't you see her feelings for you? They've been by your side for a long time, and they're all women who treat you better than me and are more suitable to be your wife. I don't understand love at all, and I only know how to work all day, and I'm cold to you, and I don't even let you into my room, but you want me to be your wife. I've said so much, but in fact, everything is very clear, isn't it? You've never thought of giving up on 17, and you've always been by my side because of her. His body softly leaned against the railing. Yang Chen's face was pale, as if his soul had been sucked out. It was as if he had experienced a long, chaotic battle. Yang Cheng stared blankly at the river in the distance, and his eyes dimmed. He murmured, "Ruoshi, don't say it. I beg you, don't say it." Lin Ruoshi raised her head and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She smiled apologetically and gently. "I'm sorry. I know it's heartless and cold-blooded to say this. I know you've done a lot of things for me. I've seen it with my own eyes, and you've helped me behind my back. But I couldn't help it just now. These words, these questions, I've been suppressing and hiding them in my heart. It's like a slow-acting poison eroding my internal organs. I'm also in great pain. Since Kristen told me about her that day, I wanted to ask you several times, but I didn't dare to. I'm also worried about the consequences, and I'm afraid I can't bear it. But fortunately, I'm stronger than I thought, and I believe you won't be defeated by these words. Maybe it's because I'm abroad, I don't have so much work to distract me, and I don't have family around, so I have more time to think. Today, what happened just now happened. All these little reasons came together, and you took the initiative to let me ask you, so I said what I haven't said before. In the future, I won't say this to you anymore." Yang Chan remained silent, as if he didn't hear anything. Lin Ruoshi bit her lips and said, "The press conference is about to start. I'm going back to my seat. If you don't want to attend, it's okay. I know you must be in a bad mood. And your friend came to see you. There must be something. You don't have to care too much about what I said. Just think of it as me complaining and complaining. Don't we often quarrel and have a Cold War? It's the same this time. Anyway, life will go on as usual." After saying that, Lin Ruoshi tidied up her appearance, turned around, and calmly walked back to her seat. When she passed by Solon, Solon nodded respectfully, and Lin Ruoshi also smiled politely at him. Everyone present saw Lin Ruoshi walk back to her seat, and they discussed what had happened. After all, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Lin Ruoshi had cried. Stern and Alice, the siblings, were much quieter. Seeing Lin Ruoshi's expression, they just looked at her worriedly and didn't say anything. Lin Ruoshi didn't care too much about the discussions and gazes of others. She quickly got into work mode, picked up the document, and looked at it carefully. At this time, the person in charge who ran away just now walked in front of Lin Ruoshi with a flattering smile and asked in a low voice, "Miss Lin, may I ask, can the press conference begin?" Lin Ruoshi was stunned and wondered, "Why ask me? This shouldn't be decided by me." The person in charge smiled and said, "If you're not ready, we can wait for you. By the way, Mr. Yang hasn't returned to his seat yet. Should we wait for him to come back before we start?" As the person in charge said that, he looked at Yang Cheng, who was still standing on the shore with awe in his eyes. Lin Ruoshi suddenly understood and thought it was a little ridiculous. Everyone present was actually afraid of Yang Cheng's mysterious identity, and all the decision-making power was given to Yang Cheng and herself. You don't have to be so nervous. What happened just now was a personal grudge. Don't affect the progress of the fashion week, Lin Ruoshi advised. The person in charge immediately nodded to show that he understood. Miss Lin is really magnanimous. At the reception later at noon, please do us the honor. It's your first time attending the fashion week. We must do our best as a host. Lin Ruoshi casually responded with a few words, indicating for them to hurry up and start. She wasn't interested in the reception at all. However, she couldn't help but look at the back of the figure standing by the river. The feeling in Lin Ruoshi's heart was indescribably complicated at this time. Standing by the railing, Yang Cheng, who had been standing for a long time, finally came to his senses. Yang Cheng raised his left hand and beckoned with his fingers. Sauron, who had been standing behind, understood and walked to Yang Cheng's side. Yang Cheng sighed and asked, "Sauron, let me ask you a question. Answer me honestly. Sauron's expressionless face remained the same. His lips moved. "Your Majesty Pluto, I never lie." "Very good," Yang Cheng said. "Tell me, in your eyes, am I someone who will deceive myself to cover up my cowardice?" A glimmer of light flashed through Sauron's turbid eyes. "Your Majesty Pluto, although I am your subordinate, in terms of age, your question is the same as your age, very immature." Yang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. "Now that you mention it, it seems that my question is very stupid." Sauron replied directly. "I believe that deceiving and confessing are just methods. As long as you admit your feelings, that is the performance of an expert. A true expert doesn't depend on his own strength, but whether he can face and work hard to solve problems in adversity." Yang Cheng narrowed his eyes, thought for a moment, and laughed self-deprecatingly. "It seems that my question is indeed stupid. Yes, whether I'm really cowardly or strong. As long as I face the problem, I have a clear conscience." Sauron didn't say anything, but there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Although it couldn't be said that he had thrown away all his worries, Yang Cheng pulled his heart back and turned to ask Sauron, "Suddenly coming to a place like this to find me, I don't think it's just to see me, right? You saw it too, when you appeared. The situation almost went out of control." Sauron's expression became more solemn, and he nodded. "Indeed, there is something important. I believe your Majesty Pluto has heard about it. The International Special Organization secret meeting organized by France's External Security Bureau will be held in Paris." Yang Cheng frowned. "I have heard about it. It seems to be a terrorist organization that is fighting against the realm of gods, and the leader is Apollo. I actually have some dealings with people from this organization. I was kidnapped as soon as I arrived in France, and it was done by an affiliated organization." "That's right. I didn't expect your Majesty to have already come into contact with them. However, I came to see your Majesty specifically because, other than to see Lady Persephone, there is another matter that I urgently want to tell your Majesty," Sauron said. "What?" "Don't tell me that you already know whether Apollo is real or not." Yang Cheng laughed. Sauron shook his head. "Whether Apollo is real or not is not something that we care about, and it is not something that we can determine. What I want to tell your Majesty Pluto is that in the secret meeting tomorrow night, apart from discussing how to find Apollo in the realm of gods, there is another matter that is closely related to your Majesty. It is about the fight for the ownership of a divine artifact." "Divine artifact?" Yang Cheng was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed. "You can't be talking about the one that the previous Pluto lost, right? That is no ordinary divine artifact. I fought with Ares a while ago, and the power of a divine artifact in the possession of a Lord God is indeed astonishing. Ares' spear can actually freeze space, and I believe that the power of the other Lord God's divine artifacts must be extraordinary. If such an item really appeared, there is no way that I wouldn't have sensed it." Sauron was slightly surprised, as if he did not know about the battle between Yang Cheng and Ares. However, he did not ask further, and continued to explain that divine artifact is indeed not in the possession of the 12 main gods, but its owner is closely related to your Majesty Pluto. "Don't keep me in suspense. Who is it, and what divine artifact?" Yang Cheng asked helplessly. "It is the weapon of the Grim Reaper, Thanatos, the Sword of Thanatos." Grim Reaper Thanatos? Chapter 517. Yang Cheng did not expect it to be that god. According to Yang Cheng's understanding, other than the 12 gods, there were actually countless other gods. However, as time went on, almost all the gods had gradually died out except for the 12 gods. There were also some who, like the previous Pluto, had lived for too long and had no interest in life, so they had long abandoned their self-consciousness and did not choose to reincarnate. The two brothers of Pluto, the goddess of night Nyx, are also known as the twin gods. Thanatos, the god of death, and Hypnos, the god of sleep. I believe that your Majesty Pluto should be very familiar with these two gods, even if you haven't personally taught them. Although their artifacts can't be compared to the helmet of invisibility originally owned by the First Lord Hades, they are definitely not ordinary goods, Sauron said solemnly. Yang Cheng pondered for a while and said, "The Sword of Thanatos. It is said that as long as the sword touches any part of a human's body, even if it cuts off a strand of hair, it can immediately suck away the person's soul. In the current myths, Thanatos would cut off a strand of hair of a dying person and take away the person's soul when they were asleep. It is considered to be more realistic. However, I have not seen the sword before. As far as I know, Thanatos has disappeared for nearly 1,000 years like most other gods. Why would the sword appear here? Sauron said, "This matter itself is very sudden. The current owner of the sword is actually the French External Security Service. However, the French did not reveal the source of the sword. They only said that through this secret meeting, they would find a good home for the sword. After all, the French do not have a strong enough special force. In the field of international special forces, they're not too competitive. Therefore, if they did not have the sword of Thanatos as a bargaining chip this time, they would not have gathered the elites and representatives of so many organizations in Paris. I was wondering, how is it possible for the French Security Bureau to gather the entire world here? Even if Apollo and the realm of gods wreaked havoc all over the world, the first person they wanted to kill would be the French president. It wouldn't be France's turn." Yang Chung smiled and said, "Before I came to Paris this time, the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade's representative mentioned the secret meeting, but they didn't mention the Sword of Thanatos. I think they don't want me to fight with them for it. They're really thoughtful. Are they afraid that I'll just take the divine artifact away? It's highly possible. After all, Your Excellency is currently residing in Huaxia. Any action that you take could put Huaxia's Yellow Flame Iron Brigade under more pressure," Sauron said. Yang Chung thought for a moment and said, "I'm actually not that interested in the sword, but if that sword is real, then even if I don't fight for it, I have to see it live." "Why? Your Excellency Pluto can totally retrieve that sword." Sauron was puzzled and asked, "That's a divine artifact that belongs to the god of death. It's more than appropriate to return the god of death's weapon to you now that you've become Pluto. Although I don't know if it's real or not, since so many organizations have gathered here, it's definitely not groundless. If Your Excellency Pluto thinks that it's too troublesome to deal with the small fries, I can totally send the sea eagles to deal with them quickly. You won't understand. To me, the divine artifact isn't that useful anymore." Yang Chung waved his hand, indicating that he wasn't interested. After all, he had almost completely grasped the divine power of the Lord God's use of the law of space. The only thing that made Yang Chung feel that there was room for improvement was the mysterious world that he had yet to comprehend after entering the innate realm from the 9th stage of the Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture, Rebirth. In addition, in Yang Cheng's mind, the mysterious person who suddenly tore apart space and stole the divine power from the Holy Grail when they were fighting for it previously appeared in his mind. If this sword of Thanatos was real, would that guy appear again? The Godstone was taken away by a guy whose background was completely unknown. Although Yang Chung wasn't as persistent as Ares to get it back, he still felt a sense of shame from being fooled. "Solon, where is the location of the secret meeting tomorrow night?" Yang Chung looked at the ship in the distance and asked casually. "It's at Le Havre, on the super cruise ship Louis XVI at the port. The ship will start boarding at 9 o'clock and then sail to an uninhabited island. That island is a secret training base for the French military," Solon said. "Le Havre? Isn't that near the English Channel? It's about 2.5 hours from here." Yang Chung frowned. Solon nodded. "Yes, Your Excellency. However, this is actually understandable. After all, it's a gathering of all kinds of special people from all over the world. It's hard to guarantee that they won't fight for something or for the Sword of Thanatos. If the meeting is held in Paris or other big cities, it'll be a big problem whether it's for cover or fighting." Yang Chen shrugged. "Maybe. I got it. I'll go take a look tomorrow night. I'm sure you'll be invited too." Solon said, "Yes, but if Your Excellency Pluto is here, I'll be more than willing to give up my seat. There's no need for that. You can handle this kind of meeting as you see fit. I'll look for you after strolling around. Do what you need to do. Don't put your attention on me just because I'm there, and don't mention me to the people from other organizations," Yang Chun said with flagging interest. Solon seemed to feel helpless about Yang Cheng's temper. He sighed and said, "Your Excellency Pluto, you've really changed a lot in the 2 years since you returned to Huaxia." Yang Cheng chuckled. "If I've changed, so be it. It's good this way. I can live my life in peace and occasionally deal with some troublesome matters. Although I used to live passionately, I'll get tired of it after a while." "I'm sure you've had these thoughts a long time ago, Solon." A rare smile appeared on Solon's chiseled face as he nodded. Yang Cheng shook his head. "Solon, your smile is so ugly." "That hasn't changed, tisk tisk." At the same time, in the northwest of Paris, at the port of Le Havre, a silver-white cruise ship with a height of 50 to 60 meters and a length of 2.5 football fields, the Louis XVI, was quietly docked on the shore. Outside the entrance of the cruise, a long ladder that extended to the shore was covered in a red carpet, with fresh bouquets of flowers on both sides. The local residents did not know that the guests the cruise was welcoming this time were not tourists like in the past, but a special group of people who lived outside the public's perception. At this moment, Depnay, dressed in casual clothes, was walking down the stairs from the cruise, accompanied by Deputy Director Fodessa and a few other officials of the 7th Bureau. Depnay turned to look at the luxurious cruise ship and asked, "The Sword of Thanatos has been transported to the island base, right?" "Yes, it's being guarded by our anti-spy team. A destroyer escorted it to the base, and it's being closely guarded," Fodessa replied solemnly. Depnay nodded. "Yes, there can't be any mistakes. As long as the Sword of Thanatos is in our hands, the outcome of the conference will definitely be beneficial to us." Fodessa frowned with a complicated expression. After some hesitation, he asked, "Director, when did we get the sword? Why haven't I heard about it before?" Depnay sneered. "Who do you think you are? Do you really think you can know everything about the 7th Bureau just because you're deputy director? Fodessa, do your job well. I'll be in a temporary base in Le Havre to host the conference tomorrow night. As for the work on the island, you have to be careful. There can't be any mistakes." Fodessa was stunned. "Director, you're not going to the island?" "Nonsense. If I were to host the conference, why would I need you as a deputy director? In a few years, I'll have to retire to the second line of work. It's not every year that I get the experience of hosting a conference like this." "What? You don't want the chance?" Depnay asked coldly. Fodessa hurriedly shook his head. "I understand. Thank you, Director, for your guidance." Depnay's expression turned slightly better. He left with a few of his men. After Depnay and his men had left, Bolton, who had been following behind Fodessa, came forward and whispered angrily, "Deputy Director, the director's decision is obviously because he's afraid of the members of the various organizations on the island. He's pushed you into the eye of the storm. If there's any argument, you'll definitely be in danger. Furthermore, the responsibility of guarding the Sword of Thanatos has fallen on your shoulders. This is too despicable. How could he do this to you?" Fodessa glared at Bolton. "Shut up. You can't talk about the director behind his back like this." Bolton could only swallow his anger and nodded. Fodessa turned around and gazed at the azure sea. "Actually, although the director said that with the Sword of Thanatos, we'll be able to take the initiative in this conference. However, I've always felt that this conference shouldn't be organized by us at all. Although the treasure is in our hands, it doesn't mean that we have the ability to protect it. Why don't we hand it over to England and America, who were also attacked by Apollo, and have our assistance? That's a better choice. Is it because England has the sword and the stone, and America has the blue storm?" Bolton raised his eyes and said bitterly, "Compared to them, we're indeed too weak." Fodessa closed his eyes and said, "Regardless of whether this decision is right or wrong, since the conference will be held tomorrow night, we can only try our best to treat it well. Although the elites of the various countries are powerful, they won't be the first to stand out due to their fear of each other. As long as we make good use of this, we'll definitely be able to reap the benefits. I only hope that the Sword of Thanatos will be able to bring us sufficient benefits in the process of discussing how to deal with the realm of God." Fodessa muttered to himself. His grayish-blue eyes gazed at the distant skyline, as if he was deep in thought. Chapter 518. By noon, the Tuileries Garden Fashion Conference was almost over, and several brands had released their new products. In fact, due to the appearance of that arrogant woman, Meryl, there was chaos and delays in the conference. Several designers, unfortunately, couldn't show their works on stage. After Yang Chung and Sauron finished discussing the conference, Sauron excused himself. Yang Chung wandered around the venue and drank a cup of coffee. He didn't return to his seat to watch the Fashion Week. He wasn't thinking about Thanatos' Sword of Thanatos, nor the secret meeting. Instead, he was thinking about how to mend his relationship with Lin Ruoshi. Lin Ruoshi was right. No matter what the two of them thought, they still had to live their lives. They weren't like when they first met. They were more like strangers than husband and wife. At that time, they could still talk about divorce and contract. Now, they definitely couldn't. Although they knew that there was a strait or even 1,000 mountains between them, they couldn't deny that if they were to really separate, it would cause a lot of trouble in each other's lives. At the very least, Wang Ma, Guixiuhua, and other elders, as well as Huilin and Jinxiu, who were inextricably linked to each other, would not be able to accept it. Their work and life would also be disrupted, and their originally stable lives would become a mess. After watching the press conference, Lin Ruoshi packed up the documents in her hands and put them into her bag. Just as she was about to get up, she realized that Stern and Alice, who were beside her, had already fallen asleep. Stern had his arm around Alice's slender waist, and Alice was like a kitten leaning on the shoulder of her brother's lover. Her silver hair was scattered like silk, and the expression of this handsome man and beautiful woman was charmingly naive. Ever since she was young, the person that Lin Ruoshi interacted with the most was Yang Chung. However, she didn't expect to meet such a wonderful pair of siblings in France. At first, she thought that the siblings were a bit disgusting. But after 2 days of interaction, it seemed that as top nobles, they had a cute side that other nobles didn't have. Lin Ruoshi hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and patted Stern's shoulder. "Mr. Stern, you'll catch a cold." Stern was in a deep sleep and didn't even open his eyes. "How can you wake them up like this? They're making out in their dreams." Yang Chung suddenly walked forward. Lin Ruoshi looked up at Yang Chung. Their eyes met, and Lin Ruoshi's face was a bit hot. Thinking of their conversation before, Lin Ruoshi felt a bit awkward and uncomfortable facing Yang Chung again. Yang Chung smiled understandingly. This feeling was like a couple having a quarrel, and the wife felt that her words were too harsh, but couldn't bring herself to ease the relationship. The man, on the other hand, didn't know where to start, so he could only talk about it from another angle. "Watch me." Yang Chung stepped forward, raised his leg, and kicked the back of Stern's chair. Shit! The back of the chair was kicked, and it tilted forward. Stern fell to the ground in an unsightly manner. "Who kicked me?" Stern finally woke up. Normally, such a scene would have caused a roar of laughter at such a fashionable occasion. But the surrounding guests saw Stern's embarrassed look, and they pretended not to see anything. They didn't dare to make any special comments, and started to leave the venue one after another. Obviously, the people present were afraid of the two mysterious guests, Yang Chung and Lin Ruoshi. No matter how funny something was, they were afraid of getting burned if they laughed. As Stern fell forward, Alice, who was in his arms, almost fell flat on her face. She hurriedly stabilized her chair, then pouted and glared at Yang Chung. "Mr. Yang Chung, you're too rude. For the sake of your health, and so that you don't catch a cold, I can only ruin my noble character a bit," Yang Chung said. Stern stood up from the ground, dusted off his knees, and said with a pout, "Seeing that Miss Lin is treating me and Alice to lunch, we won't mind." "What? I'm treating you to lunch?" Yang Chung looked at Lin Ruoshi, puzzled. Lin Ruoshi also seemed a little confused. Stern hadn't mentioned this before, but when she thought of the two siblings being penniless, she nodded. "Mr. Stern, they lost their belongings. It's only right to help them." "Help what? They're from the Cromwell family. How can they starve to death? Besides, the people attending the Fashion Week can go in and out of the banquet restaurant at will. They can go to the buffet themselves. I'm just about to shamelessly break in the relationship between husband and wife. What are you guys doing? Buffet? Oh my God, Mr. Yang. Can you bear to see us, the one and only pair of siblings, being stared at by a group of people? We're Miss Lin's loyal supporters. I believe Miss Lin would never treat us so cruelly. Stearns said righteously. Don't be so shameless. You siblings didn't care about being stared at before, but now you care. Yang Chung raised his voice. Alice suddenly flattened her mouth and squeezed out a few tears. She cried to Lin Ruoshi, Miss Lin, Mr. Yang is too fierce. We're not cheating for food and drinks. We'll definitely repay Miss Lin. Lin Ruoshi was about to go crazy. Why does this Yang Chun have to be so calculative over such a small matter? He's not poor, but he's so stingy. He's not uncultured, but he's so vulgar. Rolling her eyes at Yang Chung, Lin Ruoshi said softly, Don't worry about him. What do you two want to eat? I'm actually not familiar with Paris, so I'll leave it to you two to recommend. Alice immediately raised her hand. I know a good Italian restaurant on the Champs-Élysées. Miss Lin can go and try it. Whatever my baby Alice wants to eat is what I want to eat, Stearns said shamelessly. Yang Chung touched his face gloomily and secretly cast a contemptuous look at the unscrupulous siblings. The siblings pretended not to see it and began to thank Lin Ruoshi. Lin Ruoshi didn't notice anything unusual and said to Yang Chung lightly, Then let's go. We have a press conference in the afternoon. You're really desperate, Yang Chung said helplessly. I'm here to work. Lin Ruoshi was unhappy with Yang Cheng's sloppiness. Yang Chung sighed and had to follow Lin Ruoshi's intention. The four of them were still driven by Yang Chung, and it didn't take long before they arrived at the world-famous Champs-Élysées. After getting out of the car, the siblings were like happy birds and directly dispersed. Yang Chung and Lin Ruoshi followed behind and slowly walked on the street. On both sides of the Champs-Élysées, under the cover of the thick French plane trees, it was leisurely and leisurely. The life and romance of Parisians were wantonly revealed in various famous roadside shops, fashion stores, and cinemas. Gorgeous, elegant, leisurely, beautiful had become synonymous with this street. Although Yang Chung had been here many times, it was the first time he felt leisurely and elegant here. And Lin Ruoshi herself was a leader in the fashion and culture industry. Naturally, she was particularly fascinated by the various forms of expression on this avenue. Among the people, some were well-dressed, some were simple and elegant, some were youthful and enthusiastic, and some were simple and casual, but none of them were arrogant or pretentious. Watching Stearns singing and dancing in front with Alice in his arms, and kissing each other affectionately from time to time, Lin Ruoshi couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle. Walking beside the woman, Yang Chung naturally saw it clearly. He couldn't help but laugh. Why? Are you envious of their good relationship? Actually, there's no need to be envious. I don't mind letting you kiss and hug me. Vulgar, Lin Ruoshi threw a supercilious look at Yang Chung. Yang Chung smiled. What does it matter if it's vulgar or not? Look at people like Stern and Alice. I don't think there are many people in the world who can understand them, but aren't they still living their own exciting lives? A few rays of light flashed across Lin Ruoshi's eyes. After a moment of silence, she said, Do you know, Champs-Élysées also has another name, Élysée Garden Avenue. Huh? Yang Chung blinked. I don't know, what does it mean? The meaning of Élysée is pure land of bliss. In the eyes of the French, this is their paradise. Lin Ruoshi said with a lot of emotion. Yang Chung nodded. Now that you mention it, this street does look better. It's a pity, hearing Yang Cheng's pause. Lin Ruoshi looked back in confusion. Unfortunately what? Unfortunately, in my eyes, this street still has some incomplete beauty. Yang Chung frowned, looking regretful. Why? Lin Ruoshi's interest was also piqued, and she rarely asked. Yang Chung turned his face and showed a slightly naughty smile. The next second, his right hand grabbed Lin Ruoshi's empty left hand from behind. Lin Ruoshi felt her left hand was grabbed by Yang Cheng's rough and hot hand. She suddenly blushed and struggled a few times, but she couldn't get rid of it. What are you doing? Lin Ruoshi was anxious. She was not used to being grabbed by a man on the street like this. Holding hands. Don't you see the men and women around you walking like this? Yang Chung pouted at the couples walking on both sides. Lin Ruashi bit her lower lip, breathing a little fast. She lowered her head and didn't dare to face the people walking on the street, although no one would stare at them impolitely. To me, this street is the real paradise when I hold your hand and walk on this street. Hearing Yang Cheng's low voice, Lin Ruashi's face became even redder. She knew that Yang Cheng was indirectly expressing his feelings, but she could only pretend that she didn't know. After a long time, Lin Ruashi spat out 2 words, hypocrite. Yang Cheng could tell that Lin Ruashi said this word with a smile, so he laughed indifferently and pulled Lin Ruashi's hand. Let's go quickly. The shameless siblings are already waiting for us in front. Do you want them to laugh at you? We're already an old couple. What are you afraid of? Who's an old couple with you? Lin Ruashi finally raised her head. She opened her eyes wide and pouted her lips. Her expression was extremely cute. A goddess also had a cute side to her, but only to special people. Whether it's a substitute or not, I'll just put it aside for this afternoon. Lin Ruashi muttered in her heart. The 2 of them held hands and followed the stern siblings. After walking for a few minutes, they arrived at the Italian restaurant they were talking about.